Might as well go for a soul and nobody drowns and nobody dies. So you want to have it yo and I want it mine. All this a minute going round and a boom boom makes me thirsty for love.
You know, looking back 24 hours, you would have sworn I was hungover yesterday and completely incapable of doing my job to the standard I expect to do it every day. But I promise you, I was sober as a judge on the show yesterday. I think probably, I don't know, if I were looking for an excuse, I would just say it was a case of the Mondays, but I completely blew it. And I'm sorry for that. Last Friday, every Friday on the show is an all request Friday where we play a little bit of a song that you ask us to play. And we decided last week, in honor of Dry January, to have a figurative drink and play some drinking songs. And wouldn't you know, got so many requests last Friday for drinking songs that I promised to carry them over into Monday, and then we would make Monday your hangover edition of All Request Friday. But I completely gapped. Straight up, no excuses, except maybe that it was Monday. And I'm an idiot. I let you down. I'm sorry about that. So we're having our hangover show on Tuesday, okay? The songs are here, but they're not here when I promised they would be. And I don't like breaking those promises to you. So my apologies for messing up like I messed up yesterday. I done gummed it up good, but we're going to try to make up for it today by playing your requests from last Friday that are hungover drinking songs till today. That, of course, Canada's own Kim Mitchell with Go for a Soda. You might remember on Friday during our All Request Friday drinking songs edition, Lager and Ale from Kim Mitchell came up. And here's something else. There will be one more. That's right. One more at some point today on the hangover edition of All Request last Friday. There will be one more Kim Mitchell song coming. I will not tell a lie. I had not heard of said song. I thought I was a pretty big Kim Mitchell fan. So you'll get to hear that on this All Request Tuesday, the hangover edition. And while we're on the subject, this Friday coming, All Request Friday, we like to put a theme around it. Yesterday was what's known as Blue Monday, allegedly the most depressing day of the year because the Christmas bills are coming in. You're feeling the weather, the mid-January, the month that never ends, yada, yada, yada. So we're going with sad songs as our theme for All Request Friday this week. If you've got a song that fits the category, and you always do, be as creative with it as you would like, but just drop me an email, mike@570news.com. Or call in and let Jen know what song you would like to hear on Friday. You know the numbers, and our phone lines are open the minute we start the show every day. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. All Request Friday this week. It'll be the Sad Songs edition in honor of Blue Monday just past yesterday. I promise I won't belabor this point because I was thinking about it yesterday as I thought about all of the things I messed up on the show between 9 and 1 yesterday. And you're probably going to get tired of me going on about this. But I'll just say this, and then I promise to let it go. Two things, in fact. One is, got home yesterday. It was great. Some nice light snow to shovel away. Got it cleared up. Rosie, the pandemic pup, and I took our walk. We braved the elements. It was not exactly mild, you know, and lovely. Made the commitment, get outdoors no matter how cold it is. And then last night I looked out the window before bed and I'm like, what? Didn't I shovel that snow before I went for a walk with the dog this afternoon? And now there's just as much, if not more, snow already back outside. It's like the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? And as my late great friend Don Cameron would say, it's colder than charity, this morning. I have no idea what that means, but it was a Don Cameronism. I think we should carry those on. It is colder than charity this morning. So brace yourself, and I'm going to try my very best. I'm going to try my very best to not bitch and moan about the weather for the rest of this winter, because you must be getting tired of it. Just know that if you're struggling through this season that seems to have started in November, oh wait, it did start in November and continues with no sign of letting up, I'm with you, okay? I'm with you, but I'm going to try to stiffen my upper lip and deal with this in a more adult fashion. You get what you get, and you don't get upset. Much for us to get to, and some serious business as well. But before the serious business, it is the morning after the night before. The Leafs played. I want to forget the score. Is it okay if we just don't talk about the score against the Minnesota Wild last night? But when the Leafs play, you know what often happens, right? Their captain, Austin Matthews, initials AM, he usually scores goals. It's AM on AM in the AM, baby.
Broken up by Matthews, flipped ahead. Matthews with a breakaway in on goal, score!
Matthews on a breakaway. Scores. That's like Jack Pridham with the Kitchener Rangers. Give him a breakaway. He'll score a goal for you. Austin Matthews, even though the Leafs lost, he scored last night his 25th goal of the season. He's tied for 11th. 11th he is tied for in National Hockey League goal scoring. So we'll just forget the score of the game last night and focus on the fact that AM got himself another goal, and he's in 11th place in NHL goals scored. To the serious business of the day. I hate to say I told you so. I don't want to be that guy. But if you were listening to this show last week, I told you so. I told you that this is what was going to happen at Waterloo Council. We reported on the story a week ago that Waterloo Council would last night discuss the idea of a renoviction bylaw aimed at protecting tenants from bad faith landlords who slap on a coat of paint or do some other cosmetic renovation, in air quotes, and in so doing, they remove the existing tenant and charge more for the rental of the unit. And staff in Waterloo, with the report that council considered last night, was recommending not going ahead with a renovation bylaw for, among other reasons, the cost, $800,000. But I said last week, right here in this chair, right around this time on this show, if there is a council in this community that is ready to spend your money, it is Waterloo Council. And what do you think happened last night? Look, Waterloo Council, I'll just remind you again, in this term, beginning 2022, this is an election year. If the way your tax dollars are managed matters to you, then keep this in mind when October rolls around, because Waterloo Council has, by head and shoulders, outspent every other council in this region when it comes to the increases to your taxes. More than 26%. Your taxes in Waterloo have been increased in just this term. And last night, Waterloo Council had no bones about spending another $800,000 this year, $450,000 more next year, $1.25 million more added to the expenses in Waterloo after they just approved the budget. But again, I'll just remind you, if there is a council in this region that likes to spend your money, it is Waterloo Council. That's it. And, you know, again, we don't want, I get it. I want to, please, like, let's protect tenants from bad faith landlords, evictions, etc. There is this thing called the Landlord and Tenant Board. It is a provincial body. These are provincial matters to be sorted. So the next time, remember this too, the next time the city of Waterloo complains about all of the provincial downloading that happens, all of the things that the province has made municipalities pay for, and that's why we're so strapped for cash, while Waterloo stepped up and did this all by itself. It's a provincial matter. I'm sorry, but the municipality has little to no role in this. But sure, Waterloo, go spend more of that money for the residents of your fine city. And then the next time we talk about, well, we need a new fiscal framework here. Like, we got to get a new deal because the province has downloaded too much. Well, you just uploaded yourself right here, right now. I think it was a mistake, but I saw it coming from about a mile away. Something else that, based on earlier court rulings, had suggested to me was also coming is the settlement in the case of a former public school board teacher here in the region. For about 20 years, Carolyn Burjowski had been teaching English as a second language in our region within the public school board. And you'll remember, I'm sure the name sounds familiar, Justin Kohler was talking about it on All News Mornings today. Carolyn Burjowski was making a presentation to our public school board some years ago, got stopped midway through because she was warned about, or the board was concerned about, primarily the board chair at the time, let's be honest, Scott Pietkowski, who stopped that presentation, but said she was getting into human rights code territory here, and he had to wield his power, didn't he? Chair Pietkowski had to wield his power and stop that presentation, and that led to a lawsuit. Defamation was the suit filed by Carolyn Burjowski because she said she was tarnished and her reputation was damaged, and it was just a big old mess. But based on an earlier court ruling, I had a feeling that this would end the way that it did, and in fact, there has been a settlement in the case.
I am deeply grateful to the hundreds of supporters who stood with me through this difficult legal battle. Together, we have achieved 2 court victories at the Divisional Court and the Ontario Court of Appeal. Our anti-SLAPP victory now stands as a legal precedent. The lawsuit has now been settled.
So, we don't know from either side, and that's not unexpected. That's how these things tend to work. But it was a $1.75 million lawsuit. I'm pretty comfortable or confident when I say Carolyn Burjowski got something. If it's a $1.75 million lawsuit, she got something out of this, without question. And how much did it cost the board to litigate this all these years? I just mentioned Waterloo Council and its fondness for spending. I present to you Exhibit B and our public school board. Let's not forget, it's the same group, the same board that hired and then suddenly fired the former director of education. And this gentleman collected hundreds of thousands of dollars in salary year over year over year, really running the board into a whole bunch of trouble. And then boom, gone. I can only imagine what the severance cost. That cost us as money. Again, school boards all the time cry poor. We don't have enough money for this. We don't have enough money for that. Your public school board, friends, bungled the hiring and then had to fire a director that they hired on their watch. Can't even imagine how much this cost us, but it was because somebody did not know how to properly wield their authority as the chair of the board, in my opinion. So, again, this is a municipal election year. I strongly encourage you to keep this stuff in mind when October the 26th rolls around and you get the chance to vote in a municipal election. I know I said there were serious things, and I'm not trying to be unkind here. I think that this board has bungled enough. Thank you very much. And I think we should have a clean slate in October. You get to make that choice. I am just sharing with you. You guarantee that Carolyn Burjowski got some kind of compensation. It started at $1.75 million. Surely it didn't end there, but it was somewhere between 0 and $1.75 million, not to mention all the money the board wasted, in my opinion, litigating this from the get-go. 2 courts have now found in favor of Carolyn Burjowski. Use your vote wisely in October.
1, 2.
All right, let's get your Farwell Show 5 For this Tuesday morning, the 20th of January, number one, U.S. President Donald Trump has posted an image of a world map with Venezuela, Greenland, and Canada covered by the American flag. The post was made to Trump's Truth Social platform as world leaders gather today in Switzerland for the World Economic Forum. Peter Wollstonecraft, Professor Emeritus of Political Science from the University of Waterloo, joins us at 9:30 this morning to talk about the shifting world order. Number two, thousands of federal workers have now received notices that their jobs may be cut. The notices have been given to members across several departments and agencies, including Public Services and Procurement, as well as Statistics Canada. They tell employees their job may be impacted by cuts, but it's still unclear how many of those who got a notice will be laid off. Number three on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the Ontario Liberal Caucus has named John Fraser as their pick for interim leader. You don't... What? Of course they did. Who... It's always been It's been John Fraser since Kathleen Wynne. Did you know that, by the way? Yes, this would be the third time that John Fraser has held the role of interim leader. Bonnie Crombie, you'll remember, resigned last week as the leader of the Ontario Liberals after receiving just some tepid support, really, in a leadership review in the fall. John Fraser has represented the riding of Ottawa South since 2013, and he has served as interim leader in 2018, post Kathleen Wynne, and again in 2022, post Stephen Del Duca. Hey, Ontario Liberals, how are things going for you these days? Number four on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Wellesley Township has approved its 2026 budget, and it will bring a tax increase of 3.5% to residents. That works out to about $43 for the average Wellesley homeowner.
We put a lot of time and effort into this budget. I think it's a budget we can feel proud of. Preparing for the future with this, we've got significant dollars going into reserves looking forward, and I think we're taking care of our day-to-day challenges as well as anybody else can as far as that goes.
Wellesley, that is Township Mayor Joe Nowak, by the way. The township will spend more than $1 million on a new frontline pumper truck for the fire department and another $1 million on road work, a considerable portion of which will include resurfacing Hessenstrasse. So there you go, all you weekend warriors who love to pretend it's the Tour de France in Wellesley Township. Hessenstrasse is going to be a beautiful slice of asphalt for you. Just a ribbon of road when they get her done. Don't you worry about it. And number five on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, it's going to cost more than $14 million to make the necessary repairs to Elizabeth Ziegler Public School in Waterloo. That school was closed last March due to structural concerns, and it's not scheduled to reopen until September of 2027 at the earliest. The board expects the job will go out to tender sometime next month.
Can I have 2 liters of pop? Can I have 2 liters of pop? Well, what's more healthy, 4 beers or 2 liters of Coca-Cola? Do the math.
And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. We'll take a break. Your morning wake-up call right after this. Either you can make it or I will. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
Drank away the rest of the day, wonder what my liver to say. Drink, that's all you can now. Blackened days with their bigger gales blow in your parlour to discuss today. Listen, that's all you can now. But don't sink the boat that you built to keep afloat. Don't sink the boat that you built.
That's a band called Flogging Molly. Song is called Float, and it's by request on this All Request Tuesday, the hangover edition from last Friday's Drinkin' Songs edition. Drew wanted to hear Float by Flogging Molly, and so there you go. I'm a day late and $1 short, but what the HE double hockey stick? At least I'm only $1 short. Talk to the city of Waterloo or our public school board. Find out how many dollars short they are after, I don't know, approving budgets and then approving renovation bylaws at the cost of $800,000, or fighting a teacher in court over a defamation lawsuit because she tried to make a presentation at a school board meeting. I'll take $1 short. Thank you very much. Speaking of requests, a reminder, this Friday's All Request Friday will be the Sad Songs edition because yesterday was Blue Monday. We'll play the remainder of those songs from last Friday's Drinkin' Songs edition that we couldn't get to at the time. Just ahead of our 9:30 update in the 570 News Center, I wonder how you feel about tipping culture. Is it a tipping culture today? I don't know. Is it tipping etiquette? And I'm not even talking about how when you get handed the machine to tap your debit or credit card, it doesn't even go like 10, 12, 15% anymore. It usually goes 15, 18, 20, or even 18, 20, 23, whatever. But how about, I'm going to call this tip creep. Have you noticed, how many other places we are being asked if we would like to leave behind a tip? Here's a little bit more of my money because, that's what the terminal is asking me to do. Or maybe there's just a little jar sitting next to the cash. And there's been, look, this is not a new conversation by any stretch, right? It's been conversation over the years about what if we just paid people a wage that is livable, and then they wouldn't have to be topped up by us, the customer, when we're getting our latte, for example. But in this case, a buddy of mine is having a snowblower delivered today. Lucky guy. Hey, why don't you bring it by the Farwell household? I think that'd be just swell. But he sent me a message last night. He's like, well, what's the etiquette here? Do I tip the delivery person because I'm having the snowblower delivered? And it got me thinking about this. Again, I'll call it tipping culture or tip creep. I don't know. Have we always tipped the delivery person when they drop off what? An appliance? Maybe our water softener salt. If we use Reaper salt, they'll deliver it right to your door. They'll even take it down to the basement, put it by your water softener for you. To give them a little extra? Presumably, they are being paid by the company that employs them to do the job of delivering the stuff to you. But it is an odd thing, isn't it? When they're unloading this, water softener salt isn't exactly light, but they're unloading a major appliance or a snow blower from the back of their truck. They're bringing it right to your door. I know you've paid good money for that snow blower already, but do you tip the delivery person? I told my buddy, yes, you tip the delivery person. He says, well, how much? What's the ratio? I don't know what just tip the guy. Give the guy a little bit of extra money because it's cold as charity out there, and you're getting the snowblower delivered right to your door. You could fire that sucker up and plow your way out from that door, thanks to the guy that's dropping off the snowblower today. I'd tip him. But it does make me think about tip creep. Everywhere we go now, we're being asked for just a wee bit more, especially if you're a taxpayer in Waterloo. All right, the update from the 570 News Center, and then let's talk about geopolitics. Is the world as we know it a-changin'? It sure is. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
It's a serious situation, and we're concerned. We're concerned about this escalation, to be absolutely clear. We always will support sovereignty and territorial integrity of countries wherever their geographic location is.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
That, of course, is Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney on reports that suggest Canada may be considering sending soldiers to Greenland. And that was before this morning's or the overnight posting on social media of a new look world where the American flag covers Venezuela, Greenland, and Canada, a post made by U.S. President Donald Trump. Peter Wollstonecroft is a professor emeritus of political science at the University of Waterloo. Joins us for a conversation. Peter, good morning.
And a very warm good morning to you, Mike.
Thank you very much, sir. What do you make of these latest overtures by Donald Trump towards Greenland?
Well, I think we're in a very serious situation. And one of the predicates that I have is that we have no idea what Donald Trump really thinks. And I often use the analogy that he reminds me of a 4-year-old child who wants things done his way. So he kicks people out of the sandbox, and he wants all the toys. And then he wants somebody to bring him lunch when it's lunchtime. And then if you don't do what he wants, then he gets very aggressive. So Trump wants this and he wants that, and then if you stand up and say no, then he gets very aggressive. He wants to punish you. His retribution, and we're in the crossfires. And as your news report said, there's the map. There's Canada's, the U.S. flag is on Canadian territory, and I don't think we have any choice. We have to establish a military presence in Greenland. It's not that hard for us. There's about 4,900, 5,000 Canadian troops, rangers that operate out of the north. Many of them are Inuit people. They could be stationed in Greenland, and I think we have to stay in the United States. And as part of NATO is that you cannot attack Greenland. And whether we'll do that, I don't know. And the danger is, of course, is that Trump may become very punitive. He doesn't like, and going back to the 4-year-old, he doesn't like somebody saying, no, that's not a good idea.
And to that end, then, Peter, is the idea perhaps that if Canada should step up and support a NATO ally, as you suggest, get those 4,900, 5,000 soldiers into Greenland, then there could be repercussions for Canada in all of that.
It's a dangerous world.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in the last 24 hours, I've read 2 articles dealing with the Canadian government's preparations for aggressive behavior by the United States. That's a roundabout way of saying military action against Canada. And it is kind of horrifying to me that in 2026, that's a possibility. And it'd be foolish for people to say, "Oh, that'll never happen." And now people do say that, but all the arguments that are made by Trump and his supporters about Greenland apply to Canada. And if you look at the map, you've got Alaska, America on one side, and on the other end, the eastern side, you've got Greenland. Let's say that becomes American, and then there's that wide expanse of territory all the way up to the North Pole. That's Canada. And there's the vulnerability for the Americans. And in your news report, Steve Bannon has said precisely that. It's in the strategic interest of the United States to control the northern half of the hemisphere.
Is this then a price?
Oh, and by the way,
sure,
we will last 2 days in the cities because all we have is hockey sticks and curling stones. And you have the hockey stick.
I do. I've got them all. I've got them all. Yeah, I do.
So you're going to head up our civil defense activities.
I would 100% stand on the front line. For sure I would. But you just kind of read my mind, because what you're alluding to there, I think, is perhaps the price we are paying for not taking seriously enough our defense spending over these last many decades, I suppose.
Well, we've been freeloading, absolutely. And the presumption was, and the academic literature has addressed this, the presumption was that the United States and Canada were Lego tight, by which I mean is that our interests were the same, and that there was no difference between us, and that we didn't have to prepare for any kind of military engagement with the United States. Now, I mean, let's face it, they're the world's greatest military power in terms of able to blow up things and so on. However, I will say, and this has to be said, it's difficult to control cities, but it's really difficult to control the countryside. And you have to have an enormous military to control, let's say, Waterloo and Kitchener, and then also Elmira, and then Wellesley Township. And the negative attacks on the United States military would come from the countryside more than the cities.
You're making me think of that 1980s movie Red Dawn, Peter, where it was a Russian.
I know that movie.
Yeah, I mean, and get out in the country and find a few rifles, and there you had your little.
Well, and that's where it starts.
Yeah,
and I also think of the movie Wag the Dog. Donald Trump is in serious electoral trouble in the United States. The midterms are not that far away, November the 3rd, just so everybody knows. And he faces the prospect of losing the House and the Senate. And in order to do that, he has to stir up American patriotic fervor and rallied around the flag as a common tactic. So let's attack people. No, I think it maybe you get away with that with Greenland, maybe with Venezuela. I think it would be a big challenge back home in the United States to be attacking Canada. On the other hand, he's going to be desperate because he knows if he loses the House and the Senate, he's going to be impeached.
You mentioned those midterms, and I was curious about that. How much might the midterms play into all of this and perhaps change the calculus here?
Well, in the United States, you often hear the phrase, oh, it's an election season. And I laugh because I say it's always election season in the United States. There's always an election coming every 2 years here or there for the House of Representatives, Senate elections, presidential elections every 4 years, and then there's elections at the state and local level. Americans are voting all the time. We don't. People complain when they vote 2 or 3 times in 5 years. They, Americans are sometimes voting 10, 20 times a year, depending on where they are and what's happening. So there's always election season, and people are always making electoral calculations. That's why there's such contestation about elections in the United States, because if you win, then all the decisions that are to be made are in your hands.
It is certainly an interesting time to be alive.
And so I'm glad to wish you a very warm good morning.
I thank you again, sir. Enjoy your day.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Peter Wollstonecroft, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at the University of Waterloo, and one who I suspect heard me complaining about the cold weather earlier. But there you get it from Peter's perspective, and it's a perspective I've long appreciated. His participation in the show always enlightens me in one way or another. How do you feel this morning about our neighbors, our friends to the south? Donald Trump posts a new map of the world, and that map shows the American flag, the stars and stripes over Venezuela, Greenland, and Canada. Are these the actions of the 4-year-old child that Peter Wollstonecroft alludes to? Is this the price we pay for freeloading all of these years, all of these decades, really, again, to use Peter's word on that? And there is no question that we have been utterly deficient in our defense spending. It's the price you pay. Would love to get your thoughts on this. Phone lines are open to you on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I think we're in a very serious situation. One of the predicates that I have is that we have no idea what Donald Trump really thinks. And I often use the analogy that he reminds me of a 4-year-old child who wants things done his way. So he kicks people out of the sandbox and he wants all the toys. Then he wants somebody to bring him lunch when it's lunchtime. And then if you don't do what he wants, then he gets very aggressive.
Is more to the point. Roll out the barrel and lend me your ears. I like beer. It makes me a jolly good fellow. I like beer. It helps me unwind, and sometimes it makes me feel mellow. Makes him feel mellow. champagne costs too much. Vodka puts my mouth in gear. This little refrain should help me explain. As a matter of fact, I like beer.
That is Tom T. Hall, and I Like Beer. It's like he's singing directly to me. That's by request for Deb on this All Request Tuesday, the hangover edition from last Friday's Drinkin' Songs edition of All Request Friday. You also heard the voice of Peter Wollstonecroft in there, our guest from the University of Waterloo, Professor Emeritus of Political Science. You know what's going on in the world. That's why you listen to a show like this. What do you think of what's going on in the world? The U.S., Greenland, Venezuela, Canada. Have we been freeloading for too long? Let's go to the phones. Walter starts us off. Good morning, Walter.
Good morning. Yeah, Mike, there's so many paths off of this road that, I try to follow it as much as I can. And what I found interesting was listening to the Danish MP the other day when he's talking about how much money that they actually put into a Greenland, and that, like, over in Greenland, like, they have one of the best, pensions in the world. They get free health care, like their taxes. I don't know. It's like very low. And, and like he's going, well, why would the U.S., want to take that over? Well, I think he's just, blowing to the wind. Maybe the U.S. isn't going to do that at all. Like, if they go in there, it'll be like everybody will be on minimum wage. But then another thing that, like I heard about too, was that, Putin, he's come out and he's actually praising Trump that, oh, yeah, if you go in there and do it, you're going to go down in history. Like, just adding to the idiot's ego. And, like there's also, if they do come into Canada, Mike, how are you going to get used to drinking that American pony tea that they have down there compared to our good stuff up here?
I appreciate some levity in all of this. And I'm sticking to my Canadian beer. Thank you very much. Preferably beer right here in the region of Waterloo. Some good craft stuff here. John, you're next. Good morning.
Good morning. I heard you say you were as sober as a judge. I think I should rule on that. How about drunk as a lord? Is that a better expression?
It could be, depending on the day, my friend.
Anyway, yes. I have listened with great interest to the professor, having been I am a university survivor, and he's about what I expect from a lot of professors. Left-wing ivory tower thinking, because he forgets that one thing Trump loves to do, and especially to the media and guys like him, is troll the heck out of you. And I believe that's exactly what he's doing in this situation.
So you don't take any of this seriously?
I think it's worthy of consideration as negotiating points, but why would he bother to invade Canada? There's nothing much to gain from it. I mean, politically, and an awful lot to lose. And the other thing is, if he wants to invade him, we can't stop him. The professor is saying, oh, we could oppose them in the countryside. Clearly, he's never served as a soldier. And speaking from that point of view, that's the last place you want to fight a guerrilla war, is in the flippin' countryside. Obviously, he should get out of his university environment and see our countryside's not like Vietnam. It's not jungle. It's flat grassland. You can't hide in that. And besides which, if he thinks I'm going to suddenly put on my uniform, grab my bird-shot shotgun and go out and stop an Abrams tank full of 20-year-olds armed to the teeth, he'd better think again. I got a different plan from that. Let me tell you that. But to be serious, number one, if Trump wants to invade Canada, we can't stop him. Number two, we couldn't win the war anyway because they live right next door. The only border is a line on the paper. Number three, a lot of Canadians would probably be happy with it. Others wouldn't be, so we'd be fighting a civil war on top of trying to fight the greatest industrial military power in the history of mankind. I mean, come on, Professor. Get back into the real world here.
All right, John. Points made. I'll tell you what. I'll pick up my hockey stick. I really will if it comes to it. Jim, they don't want an old short guy like me anyway. But Jim, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, Mike, it's I find it worrisome, but I mean, I think of it as a family man. Like I when Trump got elected, the first thing I said was, so long as he doesn't drag my kids into a war, and here we are. So, and I don't even necessarily mean invading Canada. I mean, like, just dragging us into a global conflict of some sort. He just seems hell-bent on it. Honestly, Mike, November can't get here fast enough, and that's if he even allows the elections to happen once we get there. With everything that's happening in his own country, with troops in the streets, you don't think that's going to affect electoral turnout, and discourage people from going out to vote? That's what that game plan is all about. It's scary times, in my opinion.
All right, Jim, appreciate the call. I don't disagree. I mean, scary, concerning, pick your adjective there, but it's worrisome, to say the very least, from where I'm sitting. Doug, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I thought that Peter made a really, really accurate point. And I get this picture in my mind of Trump sniggering as he redrew the map. Like the mean little 4-year-old planning and plotting, even though he might not actually get his way, he was still going to do this to thumb his nose at people. And I think about a little while ago when he was trying to have the Gulf of Mexico renamed Gulf of America. That didn't happen. I really think that it's just, I'm not really sure what you think, but I think that's it's not rhetoric, but it's not that close to happening either. I can't believe he would be that crazy.
Well, and that's the thing. I go back to something David Drew said yesterday when he was here for Drew's Views every Monday morning, 11:30. He described Donald Trump's post on social media yesterday about the world not being safer, the world's better, and when the U.S. has complete and utter control over Greenland. He described it as sounding not sane. So I'm really not sure how crazy or not crazy Donald Trump is, to be honest with you. We'll get one more in before the news update. Peter, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I would like my number to the MOC 421.
Sorry?
I would like my number to be MOC 421.
Okay, the number for what number? You want to be on Farwell's force with that number? Is that what
I do? Yes.
Oh well, Peter, I would be more than happy to provide that. I just got to make sure 421 is not one of the upper numbers already taken. It is not. So, Peter, I will gladly call you MOC 421.
421 is my military occupation code.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Anyway, how can we defend ourselves if the government has taken away all our rifles?
Well, that's an excellent question. Are you saying that the gun buyback program buys right into Donald Trump's hands?
Yes.
Okay. Peter, I thank you. I thank you very much for the call. I thank you very much for your enthusiasm for joining Farwell's force, a force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with, and a force that you too can join by simply listening to the show for 15 minutes. Every day, mind you, but if you give us 15 minutes every day, we will gladly add you to maybe Farwell's force can stand up against the American military. What do you think? Peter has got his military occupation code number 421 on Farwell's force. An update from the 570 News Center, and then let's talk about the invasion of the Chinese electric vehicles on the Mike Farwell Show. That's coming up on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
I wouldn't say not surprised. I'm disappointed because we had such a great relationship, and I look forward to continuing a great relationship. But it's all about communication and collaboration and partnership. They keep preaching it. Well, at least I know where I stand now. I've been in communication with Minister Jolie, along with Minister LeBlanc. Prime Minister knows my number, and I thought we had a good enough relationship that you give me a quick text or a little bit of communication. That never happened. That's fine. Like I said, I know where I stand with him.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
That, of course, is Ontario Premier Doug Ford expressing his disappointment in not being consulted on Prime Minister Carney's deal with China that will allow some Chinese-made electric vehicles into Canada. The move by the Prime Minister certainly helps our prairie provinces when it comes to canola, but does it hurt the economy here in Ontario? Doug Ford says in this province, he's simply standing up for jobs. Ian Lee is an associate professor in the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University and joins us to discuss. Ian, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Is this decision made, this deal made by the Prime Minister with China, going to harm Ontario's economy?
No, I've never believed, and I've been teaching business for 35 years, and before that it was 10 years in banking, lending money to real businesses, small and medium-sized mostly. I've never believed that competition hurts a country or an economy. There's Nobel Prizes that have been won by people vastly more smarter than I am who have come to a similar conclusion. And, of course, we can look at the countries around the world that are the wealthiest, and they're the countries that are market economies. And so this idea that competition is going to hurt Ontario is nonsense. This is disguised protectionism. And I just want to remind everybody, way back when in the day, and I'm talking in the 70s, two companies came to North America, started to export to North America. One was called Toyota, and the other was called Honda. This isn't theory. I, as a very, very young man, bought my very first car in 1977 or 78. It was a Honda Civic for $3,400. And the North American companies were saying, oh, doom, gloom, it's the end. You know, they're going to destroy the industry in North America. Because, let's be blunt, they made better, small cars. Not big cars, not trucks, not SUVs, not two-ton Lincoln Navigators, but they made much better four-cylinder cars. And anybody listening who says, I don't agree with you, please go look at the market share. Honda's and Toyota's market share went up every year for 30 years. Today, those two companies have unbelievable market share in the mass market for small cars. So I'm limiting my statement, mass market, small cars. And they did it through competition. And then we, Ronald Reagan in the States and our country, I think it was Prime Minister Mulroney, would have been 1985, signed an agreement, a quota tariff treaty agreement with Japan. Quite similar to, it seems, what we're doing now. And they said, our government said to Japan, okay, you want access to the North American market, you got to build some plants here, and you got to build some cars here. And they did. As we all know, anyone from Southern Ontario listening to me knows that there's a Toyota plants and Honda plants in Canada as well as the States. And so they became part of the auto manufacturing landscape or ecosystem. And they started to make cars here. So and that was the outcome of Honda and Toyota exporting to Canada and the United States, being very successful, really clobbering. And I'm saying that as somebody who did own used Ford cars and GM cars before, and I was extremely disappointed, as were millions of other Canadians and Americans who switched en masse to the Hondas and the Toyotas. That's why the market share went up so incredibly. But it eventually led to investment in the industry and providing more choices to consumers, which is what it's all about. It's not about making a premier happy so he can get reelected, any premier of any political party. It's not about helping Ford make bigger profits or General Motors. It's about ultimately greater choices at reasonable prices to the consumer. That's what market economies and competition is all about.
So if we were to extend that analogy of Honda and Toyota setting up shop here in Southern Ontario, would we expect then, Ian, upon this export of Chinese-made electric vehicles, eventually we may have a Chinese automaker in Southern Ontario?
I believe that is, and I'm not privy, I don't belong to any political party. I don't donate money to any political party. I'm not a partisan. But I do read, because I study data intensively, and including the speeches of, guess who? Decision makers. Not just the Chinese, not just Trump, but our own prime minister. And I read very carefully the transcript because I'm a text guy. I don't like to watch video so much as read the words on a piece of paper. And I read his comments, Carney's comments from the press conference, and he actually talked about this, and he very clearly indicated that the long-term goal or strategy, this is just the beginning of the beginning. This isn't the end of the end. This is just the very beginning, and that's why they limited it to 49,000 cars. That's just to, wet the whistle, if you know what I mean, of the Chinese, saying, okay, we're going to give you a little small taste, but there's a bigger game down the road, and he actually talked about that, Chinese plants in Canada. And I don't see, we've been encouraging our country has been encouraging foreign direct investment from before we existed as a country. In fact, the railroad, the great CPR, was built with foreign capital and foreign technology and foreign people. Okay, they're called British and American. But I'm trying to use some humor, but it was true. And so this is another form of FDI, foreign direct investment. And so for those who say, the Chinese cheated up until now, and by the way, I'm not naive. I've been teaching in China since 2002 every year. And yes, there's good studies from the Americans and the Europeans showing that the Chinese government poured everybody sit down and grab onto your chair. In the last 20 years, the Chinese government is reported by good studies put between $250 billion US and $500 billion into the auto industry to build EVs, to build them up. Okay, they did. Whether they should have or not, we think that that's unfair competition. But they did it. It's a reality. And now they make, and I ride in Chinese EVs when I'm in, every year I go to Shanghai because my students pick me up in their cars. And I can tell you, and I'm being very honest with everyone, they make better EVs than we do. They're skating circles around us. Now, yeah, sure, if I gave someone $500 billion, I'm sure they could make a pretty good car too. But they have, according to the UNIEA, the International Energy Agency, the Chinese now have 60% market share in the world of EVs. Well, there's a reason for that. They make better cars. And so they're going to make modestly priced cars. And Ford and GM and the other companies have abandoned that market, basically. Because can anybody name a car company in North America that makes an EV, retail, new price, $25,000, $30,000, $35,000? I don't think so. So they've exposed themselves by our car companies not being more competitive. They're making, $80,000, $100,000 vehicles. Well, the average Canadian listening to this show cannot afford that. I cannot afford that. And so we're going to bring them in, and hopefully it's going to spur competition and incentivize Ford and GM and Stellantis to become more competitive. What's wrong with that? It's good for the consumer.
As we try to diversify with our trading partners around the globe, Ian, do we run the risk in this particular case, because China, of further damaging our relationship with the United States?
This is an issue that has always concerned me because our number one partner forever has been, for the last 100 years, has been, since basically 1900, has been the United States. And I believe it's going to be until the end of time. Why? Because we are joined geographically, physically at the hip. 8,900-kilometer border. I looked it up. Largest, longest border in the world. Forget the free, defended, undefended. It just is plain longer than anybody else in the world. They're not going away. Nobody's going to lift the United States and put them halfway around the world, nor is Canada going to move halfway around the world. We're going to continue to be their number one partner. And so, yes, it's very important. But here's the part we haven't discussed, and where Premier Ford is willfully, I think, not talking about this. Just before Christmas, on national television, reported widely in Canada and the States and elsewhere, President Trump said, you Canadians are not going to be exporting cars in the future to the United States of America tariff-free. Lutnick went to Toronto and gave at a big business conference, widely reported in all the media and radio stations, he said, the same thing that Trump said. You're not going to be exporting cars anymore tariff-free. I have interpreted that statement because I believe that that this is what they're going to do in the new CUSMA negotiations. They're not kidding us. They're not joking. And for those who say you can't trust Trump, he changes his mind every day. Trump has been talking about this for 25 years. Anybody who actually studies, not has a prejudice in their head of what Trump thinks. If you actually read what Trump has said for 25 years, he's been saying this for 25 years. I don't agree with him at all, by the way. I don't, but he doesn't care what I think. And he has said, we want to bring manufacturing back to America. That's what his MAGA slogan is all about. Okay, so I think what we heard was the end of auto manufacturing in Canada, not auto parts. Trump explicitly publicly said, as did Lutnick, we're not after your auto parts industry, which is, by the way, is very successful in Ontario and in Canada. We're doing gangbusters in auto parts. But he said, we want those cars. So I don't think we're going to be making cars in Canada unless we diversify to something like bringing Chinese manufacturers in here, because we are not going to be allowed, I don't believe, under the new CUSMA, to export cars to the States. Because why? Because the President of the United States said so. And Premier Ford, in all his utterances or speeches in the last several months, well, a couple of months, has not acknowledged this. He's just sort of, sticking his head in the sand and saying, oh, don't tell me the bad news. I don't want to hear what Trump's saying. I don't want to talk about it. Instead of confronting it, where are we going to go, our country and Ontario? And I've lived in Ontario and Ottawa all my life, and I continue to do so, and my children do too. What are we going to do if we don't have an auto industry to make cars to export to the United States? And I don't hear anything from the government of Ontario. What's our plan B or plan C? We don't have any plan B or C. It's just, we're going to make cars, we're going to make cars, we're going to make cars. Trump is bad, bad, bad. Okay, I agree. Trump's bad, bad, bad. But what's your backup plan? He doesn't have one.
Ian, it's always great to get your perspective on the show. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
Ian Lee is an associate professor at the Sprott School of Business, Carleton University. It's a protectionist premier's position here in Ontario. Where is the plan B and C? And for us as consumers who will continue to buy automobiles, gasoline-powered or electric, this inclusion of Chinese-made EVs into our market is nothing but a good thing for us as consumers and the market itself, because, of course, competition forces everyone to raise their game. I think that's the fair nutshell to wrap around what we just heard from Ian Lee, always one of our most popular guests here on the show. What do you think about those Chinese-made electric vehicles coming into Canada? Spy cars, as Doug Ford, Ontario's premier, has called them. And you heard Ian Lee suggest that Doug Ford is just burying his head in the sand. Well, what if the camel puts its head in your tent? And if that doesn't make any sense to you, it will when you hear a little bit of Premier Ford's speech the other day. Is this just good, though, allowing Chinese-made electric vehicles into the Canadian auto market? Good for consumers, good for the industry, because competition, that rising tide raises all boats? Let's hear from you on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
It's not about making a premier happy so he can get reelected, any premier of any political party. It's not about helping Ford make bigger profits or General Motors. It's about ultimately greater choices at reasonable prices to the consumer. That's what market economies and competition is all about.
It's 9 o'clock on a Saturday. A regular crowd shuffles in.
It's a little bit of the Piano Man He's making love to his tonic and gin. Billy Joel, by request on this All Request Tuesday, the hangover edition from Friday's Drinkin' Songs All Request Day. And that is for Donna, Farwell's Force, member number 2. As we follow up on a conversation with Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Chinese-made EVs, bring them on. It's good for the consumer. It raises the bar when it comes to competition. Let's go to the phones, get your thoughts. Lloyd, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Yeah, I don't believe that China will ever make cars here because it's not worth it if they're not able to sell cars to the American market. It's not worth them building a factory here. And another thing, too, sir, is that I think that there's going to be far less cars, far less people making cars in the near future. AI automation is going to remove the jobs anyway. We're probably going to have about 1/10 of the people actually working in the automobile sector than we do now.
Yeah, we hear that all the time about automation and the robots taking over. It hasn't fully happened yet, but there certainly is more automation in the industry. James, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I just wanted to say how the thing about this trade stuff is, I feel like Canada shouldn't be depending on just one trading partner. They have to diversify. And I mean, I haven't always been a big fan of our relationship with the U.S. And because I've looked at a lot of history over the years, I know that the U.S. isn't someone we can always trust. And I think the thing is, though, I think the politicians just are not prioritizing the right things, though. I mean, your previous caller, Lloyd, had mentioned how automation's a thing. And the thing is, I worked at a Toyota factory, actually, for summer work, and there was robots around, and I'm sure there's probably even more robots at the factory, even after years of leaving. So, but I feel like it's kind of like how I am with depending on jobs right now. You can't really depend on one job anymore. You have to find different streams of income in order to make ends meet these days. It's not the same for everyone.
Yeah, there's another good point. We're looking at diversifying our economy as a nation, and I think individually we're looking at diversifying our income streams as well. I made a reference to Ian Lee's comment about Premier Ford having his head buried in the sand, but what if the camel's head is in your tent? And I don't just make stuff like that up, just so you know. Premier Ford says things like that himself in speeches he gives to audiences in Ontario.
So I'm not too sure if President Trump wants Chinese spy vehicles coming across the border, but I'm betting the answer is no. When you get on your cell phone, it's the Chinese that are going to be listening to your, and I'm not making this stuff up, they're going to be listening to your telephone conversation. I find it ironic that the Prime Minister is using a burner phone and all his staff over in China. But we're making a deal, it's Huawei 2.0, to come back into Canada, and we get nothing but potential job losses in our factories right across the board. And there's over 500,000 people that are employed in the auto sector. And that doesn't include all those families that go out and do their grocery shopping, buy clothes, maybe put an addition on their home. So this is a serious, serious matter. They say it's only 49,000 vehicles. Folks, it's really 33% of the EV sales in Canada. And once the camel gets his head in a tent, his whole body's in the tent, and you aren't getting rid of him. Remember this speech.
Do you remember what I said earlier this morning? My late great friend Don Cameron, who used to say it's colder than charity, and I had no idea. I still have no idea what that means. Once the camel puts his head in your tent, then his whole body's in your tent. I have no idea what that means, but Ontario Premier Doug Ford is worried about the Chinese-made electric vehicles, or the spy cars, as he calls them. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
There are many people who drink in moderation with no problems, social, moral, or medical. They have learned to enjoy liquor without letting it upset the functioning of their body and mind. It relaxes you, makes you more congenial. I just had one. This helps make a gathering cheerful and friendly.
It ain't my fault, so don't blame me. I swear I
just came here to unwind and have one drink. The way it looks, it ain't what you think. This Cabernet has a way of vanishing on me. There's a hole in the bottle, leaking all this wine. It's already empty, it ain't even supper time. Honey, no, I don't miss it. In fact, it slipped my mind. There's a hole in the bottle of wine.
That is Kelsey Ballerini and Hole in the Bottle. It's an all-request Tuesday, the hangover edition, because last Friday was all-request Friday, the drinking songs edition. Deb in Maryhill wanted to hear some Kelsey Ballerini this morning, and so she does. That's how the all-request show works. Very pleased to be joined in studio by Brian Huddle, who is the general manager of the Waterloo Siskins. Brian, good morning.
Good morning.
Matt Doyle is with us as well, head coach of the Siskins. Good morning to you, Matt.
Morning, Mike.
And our good friend John Thompson, one of the founders of Let's Talk Sports Waterloo Region, with us as well. John, good morning to you.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure, and thank you for bringing butter tarts. It's never necessary, but it's always appreciated.
Raisins rock, don't they? Or have I got that wrong?
Raisins do not rock,
Okay.
but hey, I'm sure the staff will enjoy these butter tarts. I'll just carry them with some gloves over to the kitchen so they can enjoy them. Let's start with you, John, if we can, because a week today, in fact, a week and about an hour from now, another Let's Talk Sports luncheon is coming up.
Luncheon number 9 started a couple of years ago with the Rangers when UC arrived in town, and that got us off to a good start at the Navy Club. And we've done 8 others since, ranging from Panthers and Titans and University football and Sid Fit. And I think we had you and Fixie on there one day to talk about the OHL playoffs. So we're into luncheon number 9, and it's got 2 themes. One, actually, you talked about on your show with Jerry Harrigan and the other John Thompson about a month ago about the Hall of Fame for 80 pluses. And Jerry Harrigan is a member of that astute group. And we thought we're going to twin that with something. And with Jerry being one of our speakers, it was a natural to think about the Siskins. So next Tuesday, Eastside Mario's, North Waterloo. And unfortunately for some people, it's sold out, but we're looking forward to it. And it'll be the Hall of Fame 80 plus. And the Siskins, of course, Jerry Harrigan being the common thread. And we've also got Anthony Stewart, the president of the Siskins, will be joining us as well. So I'm going to turn the details about the Siskins and everything over to our good friends here from the Waterloo Club.
I'm looking forward to that. But just real quick, you talk about being sold out, John, and starting with kind of a bang when you had UC Ahokas on as your first guest speaker for these Let's Talk Sports luncheons. But I think it really speaks to not only the rich history of sports in this community, but the passion that still exists for sports general. It's not all about hockey, but sports in general today here in this region.
Yeah, I've got a good partner, Larry Lynch, and I kind of work together on these. He's got good ideas. He loves bringing his passion to the event itself, and I try and keep the organizational strings tied together so that we'll have a successful event. So, yeah, we're looking forward to Tuesday, January 27th, a week from today.
And you said Eastside Mario's in North
Eastside
Waterloo.
Mario is 450 King North, and unfortunately sold out.
All right. But you'll be there. You'll enjoy it. Some good hospitality and some good conversation. Brian, let me swing it over to you as the GM with the Siskins today. 90 years, right? We're marking as an organization a long and rich history. What does it mean to be a part of carrying that history forward in the community today?
Yeah, I think it's important. 90 years, it's the longest running junior team, I believe, in Canada at the moment. So that just brings definitely pride for myself and I think everybody who works for the organization. But I think it brings a lot of, a desire to continue it on. I want to be here for 100 years. I think a lot of people want to be here for 100 years and see this continue on. Just the legacy, looking back, some of the guys that I've got a chance to meet, whether that's, the aforementioned Jerry Harrigan or, Chad Beaupre and Terry McCutcheon or Peter Brill recently, So it's just kind of a amazing thing to be a part of and yeah, just wanting to continue it on.
You mentioned Jerry, and we were talking during the news update. I see Jerry most weekends at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium because he's a fixture there at Rangers games. But really, that man is Waterloo Siskins, isn't he, in so many ways?
He's Mr. Siskin, for sure, for sure.
And the Siskins have recently kind of rebranded back to Waterloo Siskins, which I think also, Brian, was a pretty important thing to do.
Definitely. We had our 90th celebration last year and had a big alumni game. I think there were like 50 plus players there. And that was the common theme in the room. Our president, Anthony Stewart, actually played in the game, former NHLer. And that was what they all were telling him in the room. It's Waterloo. It's the Waterloo Siskins. It's not the KW Siskins. And I think even that as they were taking pictures at center ice, they had the KW Siskins logo on it. And some of the alumni actually were putting their gloves over the K, and just as a little bit of a joke or whatever. But I think Anthony got the picture from the alumni. But yeah, they definitely felt that the Waterloo Siskins, the Waterloo community is important to the organization going forward.
Absolutely, and you've still got the right black and gold colors that you've always had. That never changed. And
nope.
Matt, let me bring it over to you for the current edition of this hockey club. Do you spend any time with these players today reminding them the torch that they're carrying from years past?
Oh, absolutely. It's all over the dressing room, to be honest with you. Their lounge room has all the old Southern Cup champions. They have the banners in the dressing room. So a lot of the history is still in the room today. And yes, the boys talk about it. Obviously, they have dads that grew up watching the 80s Siskins. So sometimes we go in the buildings, even down in Chatham, we have former Siskins walking up to us and be like, hey, my son plays the Maroons now, but I'm a Siskin. I bleed that color and that logo. So, I think the history is always going to be a part of us. They get reminded every year, but also now they're part of the history too, right? Which is something that right now at their ages, they don't think about it, but it's pretty cool to be a part of.
I love to hear that. And I run into that too around rinks in the Ontario Hockey League from what we now call the GOHL. You see logos and people will talk about the teams that they played for and what we used to call the Junior B loop. Can you walk us through, though, Matt, sort of a day in the life of a GOHL player today as you're coaching these Siskins? We know a lot about the Ontario Hockey League through being the official partner of the Kitchener Rangers, but what's it like in the GOHL for a Waterloo Siskin?
A lot of them, some of them do go to school, so they're in university, so they hit the books early, and then they come to the rink, they get a practice in. Some of them will get a workout in and they do video. And then if we're on a game day, it's almost like what we try to do. We try to give them the OHL experience. So what we want to be the calling for is, you come here, you spend it, we get you adapted to that lifestyle because it's a lot. They do a lot of stuff up at the next level that we try to give our athletes that opportunity to. Waterloo does have a good program for that, great facility. It's one of the calling cards for us. And I think, personally, it's all about prep, and it's what they do. Sometimes they are kids. You have to let them be kids. Sometimes we lose track of that in wins and losses and columns, and believe me, they know more about wins and losses than we do. And I know it's crazy, but today's athlete's different. They want to be educated. They want to watch a lot of video, and a lot of it's hockey. So, even with them with school, sometimes you got to tell them, hey, you got to get to school, you got to hit the books. But it's amazing that nowadays athletes have a backup plan, that they're not just so hockey driven, that a lot of them are going to school. So a lot of our athletes are draft picks, or they're really good at education, right? They're in University of Waterloo or in Guelph. Both universities here, so we get a lot of kids that come in for school. But for the day of a Siskin, I think it's all about realistically what they do, and we go beside them. So if they're in school comes first, hockey comes second, and obviously family's in there too. But we're trying to get good people and benefit them on whatever they're doing. Some of them, we had a kid this year that you could tell from day one he wanted to be an OHL player. He was dialed into what they're doing, always educating himself, always watching video, and I think he spent maybe a month and a bit with us, and now he's with the Erie Otters. So a lot of them are driven. They have paths they want to go. Some paths are longer than others, but a lot of our players are driven in what they want to do outside of hockey or in their future of hockey.
I know that when we look at the GOHL, we've got some teams already putting an X beside their name in the standings, clinching playoff spots. They've had some teams on some really good runs. How would you characterize the season to date for the Siskins?
For us, I think we're young. I think obviously we would like to have an X beside us, But, we're dealing with some adversity early on. Our conference is very, very tough from top to bottom. Our conference does not have any X's marked on them. So I think with us, it's just all about being consistent, finding our game, and at the same time developing them. Like, you can start to see players at the beginning of the year now really being their own. At the beginning of the year, it's a lot. Coming from minor hockey to junior, it's a lot to handle. You have a 20-year-old coming on you now. So it's like pressured situations, and I think a lot of them have adapted really well. After Christmas, I think we've been playing good hockey but haven't got the balance as we want it. But the fact that they're playing good hockey and they don't seem to get rattled, losses we learn from. They're not losses. We educate ourselves, we move forward. So, for us, we're excited where we see their finish and see what we can do in playoffs.
Brian, we're just coming off the GOHL Top Prospects game, which was played alongside the OHL Top Prospects game. And, of course, this year there is the official affiliate league. GOHL is the official affiliate of the OHL. How does that relationship change the way you do business?
I think it's changed the way that we look at winning. Now that we're the official OHL Development League, and I think Matt can even talk to a little bit on this, as he was actually one of the coaches for the prospect game. So we were very proud of him to do that. But I think it's changed how teams are built now. This is year 11 for me with the Siskins, and when I came in, it was... You had guys that were there 3-4 years, 19 and 20-year-olds, a lot of them, and you'd build towards that. And now with, the changes to the NCAA and CHL rules, our affiliation with the OHL, you're seeing more 1 and 2 year guys. So it's every year you're having to kind of refresh it. And I like that. I like having new guys coming in. I love the youth, the enthusiasm that comes with that. It makes my job a little bit more... definitely harder for sure, and that you've got to every year kind of be on your game. But I love it. I love the youth. I love the guys that are going to the OHL, like Matt mentioned. Ulysses Lombardi with us for like 6 weeks, and there he is in Erie, and we've got Logan Massamy with us from the Kitchener Rangers prospect. And we're hoping to get him there to Kitchener at the end of the year. We love that. We love seeing guys move on. But it just changed, I think, how we build teams for sure.
Real feather in the cap for you, Matt. How do you, as a coach for a prospects game, get those players used to those goofy corners at the PMC? What a crazy rink to play in.
We didn't play in it. We played the one across from it.
Oh, okay, good. You got the better rink.
Yeah, so we got the better rink. But it was good. It was a great experience. One thing it was an amazing experience. The OHL and the league did a great job. Tim and Craig Spada, they did an amazing job putting this off. And, every single GM was there for the OHL. Obviously walking in, you got to see the prospects. So, the whole Kitchener Ranger staff stayed, watched the game. And I know it sounds silly, but to those kids on the ice, the competitiveness in the game, because the house was full and it's, guys that are trying to impress. It was amazing. I was shocked, to be honest with you, how good the talent actually is. If I could take all 20 of those guys back to the Siskins, I 100% would. And I honestly think, just looking at the future and the brightness of the OHL, it wouldn't shock me if all 4 of those guys, all 40 of those players end up in the OHL at some point in the future here.
Yeah, and the future continues to look bright for our Waterloo Siskins as well as we go through this decade of 90-plus years to that century mark for the team. Matt Doyle, head coach, Brian Huddle, GM of the Waterloo Siskins, and our friend John Thompson. Let's talk sports, Waterloo Region. Thanks all for being here today. Continued success with the Siskins as well.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Well done. Thank you.
It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. A great opportunity for us to catch up with the Waterloo Siskins and get ready for the decade that'll take us to 100 years of Siskins history here in the region. From 100 to 2, this will be the second annual USports Women's Hockey Championships being hosted right here in the region of Waterloo. They're coming up in March, and they will once again be played in Elmira. The University of Waterloo, our host school, and the Director of Athletics and Recreation there, Rolly Webster, joins the show this morning. Roll, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I am excellent, thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, great to be joining you.
It's great to have you here to talk about another USports Women's Hockey Championship tournament. Just a few months away now. How are you feeling as another tournament approaches?
Well, I think yesterday we were 2 months out, so there's some anxiety on the horizon as we know it gets closer, but really excited. Excited for what we've got in place to hopefully celebrate another successful tournament.
I know a couple of new things that are coming up this year will include community skates for the public to enjoy and local hockey associations getting a chance to participate in some scrimmages. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, reality is the timing for the tournament is similar. So March 19th to 22nd is when we're hosting this year. But it happens to land on March break. So we knew early on, we had identified that we'd have to take a different approach. And while we had school day games last year, this will be our way in which ensuring that the youth are in the crowd, but also hopefully engaging the families to come out and support as a priority within their March break planning. So, there'll be free skates for the public Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We've got sponsors involved with that. And then the quarterfinal games, we'll launch this soon where teams can apply to be part of those scrimmages. So really exciting.
And along with those opportunities to be a part of the scrimmages, there are also opportunities for hockey associations to get a portion of sales from tickets to the USports Championship going back to their association.
Yeah, I think one of the big successes last year was the crowds, right? And I think, if we say the priority is student-athlete experience, the crowd in the stands really matters. And we saw that last year, the support the community gave us. And so by doing this, it's encouraging, hopefully, the young girls and boys to get out and watch a great product, but also that it's a discounted ticket, but also a portion of that goes back to their association. So hopefully as a fundraiser for their own hockey association, but also really this opportunity to profile the well-deserved recognition that this quality of hockey and these women that are playing have the opportunity to portray.
Yeah, and you see the opportunity for young people to be in the stands and watch the games and see it and then maybe be it one day. But another thing I like about this, Rolly, is really you're using this platform of this tremendous championship to grow the game in some respects with that money going back to those hockey associations at the grassroots level.
Yeah, I think for sure. We've been very fortunate with the local association here with the Ravens because we've been an integral part to the development of the girls' hockey program, commitment to coaching development. And with this championship, it's been an opportunity to further provide those opportunities with coaching clinics, but also with the officials clinic. I think if we're going to grow the game, and we're seeing it at an elite level now with the PWHL, then we need to commit, one, to profile that so our young girls understand that that's an opportunity, but also that we're investing in the coaching behind the benches, but also the product on the ice that includes our officials.
I think it's terrific. And these clinics are going to be happening next month. Well, in a few days. We're just that close to February, but they happen through February?
Yeah, so we're going to announce another coaching clinic here January 27th. So all these details and tickets as well are on our website, gowarriorsgo.ca. And then we will announce an officials clinic next month. We're just waiting to confirm the date, but later in February, we'll offer another officials clinic.
March 19th through the 22nd. It was exactly 2 months ago yesterday that this thing kicks off. GoWarriorsGo.ca/tickets if you want to take part again. And let's just a note about Elmira, Rolly, and the Dan Snyder Memorial Arena where these games get to be played at the tournament. Just a terrific venue and a terrific host community.
Yeah, I think exactly why we partnered with Woolwich is the venue. It has great angles for all of our fans to see the game, but I think you saw the capacity crowds and the energy from those. But even, in the middle of the day during the week with 400 or 500, it's a great atmosphere for our student athletes to perform in front of. But then the embracing by the community to be involved, to grab hold of it as their own, to support hockey in their community. All those reasons we saw those profiled with the attendance last year, and so we look forward to another successful event with their support.
I have no doubt it will be another successful event and a successful run for our Warriors as well. Rory, appreciate the time this morning. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mike. As always, appreciate.
Rolly Webster is the Director of Athletics and Recreation at the University of Waterloo. The USports Women's Hockey Championship returning to our region to be played in Elmira, March 19th through the 22nd. Tickets available at gowarriorsgo.ca/tickets. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The last time our federal government amended the mandate for the CBC was back in 1991. That's a long time ago. And there are now hints that perhaps Ottawa is considering a review of the CBC's mandate. Christopher Waddell is an associate professor at Carleton University, joins us for a conversation. Christopher, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How about yourself?
A little cold, but that seems to be all across the province at the moment.
You are absolutely right, sir. I mentioned that at the beginning of my show today, and I've been getting teased ever since. But I'm with you. It's a little cold for this old fella's liking.
But it's sunny here in Ottawa, so that's okay.
We'll take that. It helps feel a little bit better, at least from inside. Let's talk about the CBC and its mandate as it stands, 1991 or otherwise. What is the CBC mandated to do as a broadcaster in this country?
Well, it's basically the short form of it is sort of its goal is to inform, enlighten, and entertain Canadians. But it also has been that mandate also talks about being distinctly Canadian, reflecting the various regions of Canada to the rest of the country, and also dealing with bilingualism, obviously, because it's CBC and Radio Canada, and also fostering and building a national identity and national consciousness. So. Those sorts of things, but the key is informed. The key has been informed, enlightened, and entertained, I guess, for a really short form version.
And I can't help but think if we think back to 1991, my goodness, that's pre-internet. So surely this mandate is overdue by some extent.
Yes, and if you go back and do a little bit of a search on the internet, you'll find people over the past sort of 30 years suggesting it's time to renew the mandate and it's time to renew the mandate. But what's really happened, of course, is that the whole world of the media has changed dramatically in that period of time, both with the rise of the internet, the rise of social media, everything else, and many news organizations have had huge financial problems in that period, as advertising has moved from radio, television, and online to Facebook and to Google, which has created huge financial problems and has also led to the closure and shutdown of a lot of media outlets across the country, mostly in smaller communities, creating what has been called news deserts, where there's really no local news at all.
You spent time working as a parliamentary bureau chief with CBC News. How would you like to see the Mother Corp, if you will, evolve for the future, or for modern times even?
Actually, with a friend of mine, David Terrace, we wrote a book about this back in 2020, published by U of T Press, called The End of the CBC, with a question mark at the end of it. And what we suggested at that point was that there needs to be a serious look at some fundamental things about the CBC, starting with an end to advertising. Of course, we have advertising on CBC television and on CBC websites, but we don't have it on CBC radio. And we also suggested the CBC needs to look long and hard at what it does and not continue to do things where it's not competitive, but focus its time and attention on things where it can be more competitive, where it is competitive already or can be more competitive. And we thought that was primarily news and information and current affairs. And we're talking about CBC English language television here. I'm not talking about Radio Canada. It's totally different and runs totally differently. But we at least argued that we thought it was time to spend more time on news, spend time on news and current affairs, and in some respects make CBC television much closer to what CBC radio is at the moment. And that though means abandoning some things CBC has long done that other people do at the moment that do as well or better. We argued in part that entertainment, drama, and programming, that CBC couldn't compete with the streaming services, the global streaming services, and that was in 2020, and it's only sped up since then. in that they don't have the money to actually be able to commit to the programming that the streaming services are able to do. So if Canada, and I think it's valuable to talk about Canada and Canadian stories getting exposed to Canadians, but there's no reason why they shouldn't be exposed to the rest of the world as well. So we argued at that point that we thought it would be better for Canada, an agency of Canada, maybe the National Film Board, to actually become the agency that's taking Canadian programming and marketing them to the global streaming services and the public. That's not. We just didn't see that the public broadcaster could be competitive in that. And there's a variety of other things as well. But there's the big problem at the moment. The big decisions government has to make really is what does it want the public broadcaster to do and be, and that in part involves do they want it to compete with private media, which it has over the years. Do they want it to cooperate with private media? Do they want it to help private news organizations become bigger and better and get a foothold? So it's some of those big things, but it's also making tough decisions about what you are good at and spending your money on that and not doing what you really can't be competitive on.
I wonder, Christopher, if it is more important perhaps than ever today, given the state of the world and what we're hearing from the United States, for example, to really establish that Canadian identity and have those Canadian stories told.
Absolutely, but we need to tell them to Canadians, but we also need to tell them to the rest of the world. Now, some things have happened in the last little while. There's a new president of the CBC, Marie-Philippe Bouchard. And the CBC itself has produced a 5-year plan for what it wants to do and where it wants to go. And again, this is English television primarily, that has some good. They're saying some good things in that. How that translates in actual action over the next little while will be interesting. In some respects, it involves telling more Canadian stories. It also means hiring more journalists to be located in smaller communities across the country, particularly across Western Canada, where there hasn't been much coverage in smaller communities. But it's in Ontario, British Columbia, and Atlantic Canada as well. So it's people being able to tell more stories that way, providing they can get them on the air. So, but there needs to be a broader announcement and decision by government about where it sees the public broadcaster in the media world of today and in the media world of the future. And that's what we haven't seen, and that's what's desperately needed.
And I think it would be worthwhile pointing out that what we're talking about here is a review of the CBC's mandate and not an elimination of or defunding of, which has come up in political circles numerous times over the years.
For sure. It is. What the public broadcaster has an important role to play, has always had an important role to play. And I would argue their role is even more important in communities that have lost their local media, whether it's radio, television, or community newspapers. And CBC is moving in a little bit of that direction to actually try to become a local media for places that have lost all local media. But another issue that needs to be considered is whether Radio-Canada is distinct enough from the CBC that they should be two different entities, or should they be the same? Should they be try to be doing the same thing? And that brings up a lot of other questions and debate. But it's something worth considering, because the market in Quebec and the situation in Quebec for television certainly and is very different than it is in English Canada. And so there's questions about what role should be seen for Radio-Canada as well as for CBC.
What sense do you get, Christopher, of the appetite the federal government may have in conducting this mandate review?
Not really clear. I mean, they've made statements about it, but people have made statements about it before, and here we are. What are we? 40 years later, almost 30 years later, from 1991, and we've also had a series of heritage ministers over the past 5 or 6 years. And it hasn't been one person consistently, so that creates some challenges as well. And I guess the fundamental political problem from politicians is that there really hasn't been any politician in Canada in the last 30 years that has made a name for himself or herself by being a defender and a supporter of public broadcasting. So there's no champion of it. But the other side of that is that nobody has lost an election because they've refused to support public broadcasting either. But it is something important. And as you point out, at the moment, with the various pressures on both what we see every day when we wake up and who knows what's coming tomorrow, a focus on Canada and telling stories to Canadians is really important.
I couldn't agree.
I should say one other thing as
Sure.
well. One thing we said in our book is we thought the CBC also needed to have more journalists posted around the world. And I think that's increasingly important, too, because what we've seen is the collapse, with the exception of the Globe and Mail, really. There's no Canadian news organizations that have reporters in many places or very many places around the world. So what we're doing, what we risk doing is getting stories told to Canadians through our news media by wire services or reporters from other countries who may not understand the Canadian experience, may not understand the Canadian environment, may not be able to put what's going on in another country in a context that would be relevant to Canadians. So we need more Canadians reporting back to Canada from around the world as well. And that's an area where I think CBC has mentioned in the 5-year plan. They talk about doing more of that, and we'll see how that goes as well.
Christopher, I really appreciate you making time for the conversation today. Thanks for being here, and at least enjoy the sun in Ottawa today, okay?
Thanks very much, Mike. I might go skating this afternoon if I bundle myself up.
Very good, very good. Nice talking to you. Thanks again.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Christopher Waddell is an associate professor at Carleton University, also a former CBC News parliamentary bureau chief. And he joins us this morning to talk about a potential, and I want to stress that because I think the federal government has its hands full and, quite frankly, its eyes focused almost laser-like on the economy. But there are rumblings now, especially as we get the influence of big American tech firms like Google, Meta, etc., that there is an appetite, at least a small appetite, to undertake a review of the CBC's mandate. No such review has happened since 1991. That is 35 years ago. And as I pointed out in that conversation with Christopher Waddell from Carleton University, that predates the internet, for crying out loud. Surely the media landscape is different, and I would argue vastly different. I don't think there's an argument there. It is, period. Vastly different today than it was in 1991 when last the CBC's mandate was reviewed. Again, what we're not talking about here is a defunding or elimination of the CBC. We are simply talking about a review of the Corp's mandate. I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Maybe you are among the chorus of voices that believe the CBC should be defunded, eliminated, etc. I've long believed, and I've talked about this with you before, that there is a role for the CBC, but I kind of like the direction that Christopher Waddell is going here, insofar as stop trying to compete with the bigger streamers and other networks when it comes to entertainment content, if you will, produced sitcoms and whatnot. Let's just tell Canadian stories. And I bring that perspective as someone who has lived in other parts of this country in much smaller communities than this, where the CBC is pretty much all you got. And when you're there in those smaller, more remote locations, hello, the interior of British Columbia and way up in northwestern Ontario in Thunder Bay, when you are in those places, I feel as though the stories that the CBC was telling when I was there and can continue to tell for those markets matter a whole heck of a lot. It becomes a little bit of the glue that holds the entire country together. So I would welcome a mandate review that re-emphasizes the importance of telling those Canadian stories. And I don't mind the idea that Christopher shared at the end either, of putting more foreign correspondents or more Canadian correspondents in foreign countries to report back to us, giving us the necessary context as Canadians. That's where I'm at on this, but would love to hear where you are at on a CBC mandate review, or do you want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, I'm done with it? Your thoughts always welcome on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The big decisions government has to make really is what does it want the public broadcaster to do and be? And that in part involves, do they want it to compete with private media, which it has over the years? Do they want it to cooperate with private media? Do they want it to help private news organizations become bigger and better and get a foothold? So it's some of those big things, but it's also making tough decisions about what you are good at and spending your money on that and not doing what you really can't be competitive on.
A bottle of red, perhaps a bottle of rosé instead. Get a table near the stream in our old familiar place. You and I, face to face. A bottle of red, a bottle of whites. It all depends upon your appetite. I'll meet you anytime you want in our Italian restaurant.
That's the second time today that Billy Joel has come up in our All Request Tuesday, the Hangover edition, following All Request Friday drinking songs, and that is Scenes from an Italian Restaurant for Randy, Farwell's Force member number 20, who requested that one. I'm a big, and I do mean big, Billy Joel fan. I think I could probably, I haven't done it in a few years, but I bet you I could still sing that song word for word. One of my all-time favorites, and he's got a ton of big hits, but that song right there is one of my all-time favorite Billy Joel tunes. Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. The voice you heard as Billy was starting to sing, Christopher Waddell, Associate Professor, Carleton University, joining us to talk about the federal government's hints. At the least, they are hinting at updating the mandate of our Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. The good old Mother Corp, the CBC, not defunding the CBC or eliminating it altogether, but undertaking a mandate of the CBC's review, something that has not been done since 1991. And clearly, the media landscape has changed. And I wonder if the calls for defunding and or elimination of the CBC would quiet down if the mandate were changed to better reflect what we need in the media landscape today. I do believe, and I say this as somebody that works in private broadcasting and in some respects has to compete against a public broadcaster that isn't really playing by the same rules. But I believe there's a place for a public broadcaster, and I would like to see the CBC survive and thrive. The mandate review, long overdue from where I am sitting. Just ahead of our 11:30 update in the 570 News Center, I like to remind you at least once a day on this show that not everybody is a jackwagon, so I share a story in that regard. And today I'm reminded of another recent story I shared about a guy who made his fortune in tech, more than $320 million he sold his company for, and then decided to try to solve another problem, which was homelessness in his New Brunswick community. And he pledged to build 99 of the first tiny homes in a tiny homes community all by himself with his own money. And I asked you, what kind of millionaire would you be? Well, Patty Warden is an interesting millionaire because she won the lottery and then decided to use her windfall to give back.
It's changing the aspect of being able to do more for others, but for my personal self, hasn't changed at all.
Patty Warden is from Ottawa. Yes, right here, our nation's capital. And what she wanted to do for others was help out with the cost of groceries. So she went to the grocery store and handed out hundreds of gift cards to shoppers as they entered. The gift cards were worth hundreds of dollars each, and Patty Warden figures she gave out about $20,000 worth of those gift cards. She says she did it because she knows exactly what it's like to not have enough.
Some traumatic things happened to me. Then it turned out I had cancer. And then when I got better, instead of being smart and picking up my life where it left off, I ended up downtown on drugs. I was homeless for some time.
Imagine that. Cancer, addicted to drugs, homeless for some time. Is Patty Warden not exactly the kind of person you want to hear about winning the lottery? She won $70 million. $70 million in the Lotto Max. And now she says she just wants to pay it forward.
I want the world to be happy. That's all. I'm just trying to share my happiness.
She wants the world to be happy. Patty Warden of Ottawa, definitely not a jackwagon. Hey, if you have a story that you'd like to share about someone who is not a jackwagon, by all means, let me know. Drop me an email, mike@570news.com, and we will continue once a day, every day here on this show to remind you that not everybody is a jackwagon. Your update from the 570 News Center, and then let's talk housing on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Really, man, come on. 6 o'clock news says somebody been shot. Somebody's been abused. Somebody blew up a building. Somebody stole a car. Somebody got away. Somebody didn't get too far. Yeah, they didn't get too far.
Grandpappy told my pappy back in my day, son, a man had to answer for the wicked that he done.
That is a little bit of Willie Nelson, a little bit of Toby Keith. Together, they sing a song called Beer for My Horses. It's by request from Heather on this All Request Tuesday, the Hangover edition. After Friday's Drinkin' Songs All Request Friday, we're a little hungover on Tuesday, playing the songs we could not get to because you got a lot of drinking songs you like to hear. And so Heather wanted some Toby Keith and Willie Nelson. The poor guy that has to follow that, I don't know. He would be our good friend Philip Mills, who's the CEO of Habitat for Humanity, Waterloo Region. And Phil joins us on the third Tuesday of every month to talk about housing here on the show. Maybe, Phil, you hear that a time and again out on the farm? I don't know.
We do hear a few country songs out on the farm every now and again.
The good thing about being out on a property like that, though, is when something goes wrong, you just get right in there, roll up your sleeves, and take care of the job that needs doing. Don't you? Isn't that kind of how it works?
Some people do. My wife does. For those that know me, my wife's a farmer. And so there is this eternal tension in our relationship where I am not a doer in the way that she is. I like to ponder things, contemplate, deliberate, mull over, I consider. And in all my mulling and pondering and contemplating, like she has grabbed a hammer and started swinging. Like she just goes and does. And so there is this eternal tension in our lives of one of us who likes to talk everything through and ponder all the possibilities, and another person that says we need to go get something done.
And there is relevance here, I think, to the situation we find ourselves in when it comes to housing in this community, in other communities. And in fairness, you would know, Phil, as well as anybody, it's not quite as easy as it sounds, but I'm sure many of us would love to see this community, this province, this country, take your wife's approach to things when it comes to housing.
It's the irony of all of this, right? As I work in housing, and what we need is a little bit more of my wife in this. We need somebody, like, I kind of describe her as a force of nature. You know, it's a determination and sheer will that makes stuff happen. Because in a crisis, if our cows are out, if a water pipe is leaking, there's not really time to ponder and wonder. And like, you have to just go and act. And I think as an industry and as those responsible for housing, we've spent an awful lot of time pondering and wondering and, considering. All the while, we've got bursted pipes and broken fences and cows running loose, and we're just not acting. Like, we need to move quickly. We need to act. And I think there is this fear, and I get this as a person who likes to ponder, that what if we do something wrong? What if we make a mistake? What if we change a policy or we act and all of a sudden it turns out this wasn't the best idea? Well, let's make sure we think it through all the way. And I get that. And as we think it through all the way, nothing is happening and housing isn't getting built, and we're seeing more and more issues. And so at a certain point in a crisis like we are facing, we really need to start swinging the hammer. We need to start acting and worry less about the pondering, worry less about being perfect, worry less about getting the absolute best answer, and realize that we need to do something and that we need to be moving towards action away from all of the pondering.
When I read your blog post about this, Phil, I thought that perhaps part of what seems like we're thinking things through too much or spending too much time doing that pondering is the amount of regulation that is really involved in getting a permit and then, heaven forbid, putting shovels in the ground.
Yeah, there are tons of barriers, the permitting process and zonings and all of the realities around what it takes to construct. Like, this is something that I try to talk to people a lot. It takes a long time. And so to a certain extent, that's what makes me more agitated that we don't move faster. Like, there are other steps along the way here. You are like, it's not as if I came up with an idea and they're going to let me put a shovel in the ground tomorrow. This is going to take years. So I can't wait to start years. I can't wait a couple of years while we ponder and think and meander our way through all of these options. If I don't start today, there won't be an answer in 4 years. If I don't start today, we don't get to these things. And so, like, there needs to be an urgency to act within our system. Like, we have been pondering things in this region for quite some time. And I think if you think about it, because we've had these, like, every election, everything, like, we ponder, and these might not all be perfect examples. And I think I actually kind of like that all of these might not be perfect. But like, the city of Cambridge first talked about inclusionary zoning in 2017. That was almost 10 years ago. And they don't have an inclusionary zoning policy. Now, we can argue whether inclusionary zoning is great or bad, but if we've been talking about it for 10 years, they could have put that in 10 years ago, figured out it did or didn't work, and moved on to something different. But we're still just talking about an idea we've been pondering for 10 years. We talk about the federal government that said, hey, we're going to open up land. That was an election promise. It hasn't happened yet. Land is not actually moving. And they talked about thousands of homes, 250,000 homes is what they wanted on federal lands and supported by federal lands. But if it's going to take 5, 6, 10 years to build, you would think that that would have to start pretty soon to get there by 2030, because it's a 4, 5, 6 year process. If I had the land today, it could take me 5 years. 5 years from now is 2031. All 250,000 homes are supposed to be done. And that land hasn't been distributed across the country. Like, we have these ideas and we think this is going to work, but then we just keep talking about it. We keep having these barriers and ways. We just need to get to the action of it. As much as he says, as a person who loves to ponder and talk, like, I've sat at so many round tables and said, what could we do? We know what to do. We just need to do it.
Well, and the reality, I think, of the inaction is those years that it takes us to get to doing something, the crisis only deepens, doesn't it?
Yeah, it compounds. Like, every year that we ponder and talk is another year where a permit hasn't gotten built, a new house didn't get in. And so that's where the problems keep stemming. Like, it's compounding on itself, that by not acting 10 years ago, we're facing a problem today. And by not acting today, we're making the problem 4 years from now worse than it should be, because we could act today. We're not. And I think that there is just a lack of urgency in some of this. We need to move. There is lots of, again, like the round tables and the discussions and the policy papers and all these things. Like, the province did great work a little while ago asking about, like, there was the Ontario's Housing Affordability Task Force. They gave 74 recommendations, and that was back in 2022. And they are still under review. Like a third of those are still like, we don't know. Like, they asked experts gave them answers, and they're still reviewing, 4 years later, if this might be something they want to implement. Like, that sort of process and timing, like, we need to get away from that. We need to find ways to act with speed and urgency, because this is a crisis. Like, this isn't something that we can wander our way through a little bit at a time. Like, that's the part that seems to have been missed. If we all saw this as a crisis, if we were living out a crisis in our own lives, we would not tolerate the speed at which our action by those who are responsible would happen. I think, I bear some of that, like, as a not-for-profit. Like, that's our work here, is to build faster. And so we've been trying to figure out, how do we build faster? We want to do more because, like, we have to act today, because the problem is only going to get worse. And if we don't act today, it's going to be so much worse when we actually get to the action.
So I can't help but wonder, Phil, then, how we make this move, how we go from the talking and the pondering to the action. Part of me thinks that we have multiple crises we're trying to deal with simultaneously, right? Federally, for example, we know what's going on in the world and what Prime Minister Carney is facing, and we heard him all through the news today. Locally, We got this little problem, and it ain't so little with water right now as well. But how do we move effectively from the pondering to swinging some hammers and cutting some wood, framing some houses?
I think somewhere along the way, it becomes a disposition for us as a community and the way that we talk to our politicians and the way we talk to those in authority, where I think many of them are rightfully worried about a mistake, and that stifles our ability to act. That if a politician does something, they can't come back and say, I'm sorry, we made a mistake, we'll do better next time. They're voted out. They're gone. We don't have a tolerance for it. And so that has created, I think, within our structures and our bureaucracies and our systems, a real reticence to act, because the cost of acting can be so high from a positional reality that this is their job, this is their position. They could lose their role, where if they don't act rashly, if they don't act quickly, if they take some time, they're likely going to be okay. And so I think part of this is the way that we have created our own political system and the way that we talk to and about our politicians, that we don't reward those who are being ambitious and bold, because if they were to make a mistake, we're going to vote them out. And so I think we as a group need to bear some of that weight. We as a community to say, we're going to ask you to act, and we're going to, judge you on whether you acted, less on whether the outcome did all the things we had all dreamed it should have. We should be voting for people who act, not those who are ensuring that they don't make a mistake. And I think that shift would help to create an accountability for people to say, what you need to do is you made a promise, you acted on it. It didn't work out, but that's okay, because you actually did something. And that's what I want. We wanted you to act, you took action, and we're expecting you to make better, a different choice or whatever the case may be in the future. But the act of doing something is worth getting their vote again. And I think if we shifted as a community towards that, we would see a lot better, movement on all of the many crises we're facing as a country and as a community, if we prioritize acting and action over, talking and pondering.
Something for folks to keep in mind as this is a municipal election year. I always enjoy the conversations, Phil. Thank you, as always, for making time for the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's always great.
Philip Mills is the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. Joins us on the third Tuesday of every month at 11:30 to talk housing. How do we move, in this case, from talking to meaningful action? And what will we, I'm just going to take this by extension, be looking for when October rolls around and we are casting a ballot in a municipal election? You can try ideas, and if they don't work, you can move on to the next idea. But at least you tried the idea instead of reviewing it ad nauseum. We're going to stay in this same vein and keep our eyes on housing, because a professor from the University of Waterloo has done extensive research on the file and took that research and turned it into a documentary. You may have heard us talk about this before, because we have, and there's another opportunity for you to see this documentary. We'll talk more about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Well, I ain't afraid of dying. It's the thought of being dead. I wanna go on being me once my eulogy's been read. Don't spread my ashes out to sea. Don't lay me down to rest. You can put my mind at ease if you fill my last request. Prop me up beside the jukebox if I die. Lord, I wanna go to heaven, but I don't wanna go tonight.
It is an all-request Tuesday, the hangover edition, because All Request Friday had so many drinking songs, we had to hang a few over until today. My buddy Dennis wanted to hear Prop Me Up Beside the Jukebox by Joe Diffie. All Request Tuesday, the hangover edition. Very pleased to be joined in studio by my next guest, somebody you have heard from before on the show and is always worth hearing from again. Brian Doucette, Associate Professor in the School of Planning at the University of Waterloo. Thanks for stopping by.
No problem. Great to be here. First time in the studio.
It's great to have you in studio. We've had so many conversations, and in fact, in real life outside of the radio station. But
that's right.
Here we are in studio together, and we want to talk again about the documentary you put together about our housing crisis. Where did this idea even come from? How did it all get started?
I mean, I've studied housing for a long time, and I think if you study housing, you research about housing, you're trying to advance knowledge, I think for me, it's not enough just to be talking to other housing researchers. And so for years, and you know this because I've been talking to you for years about it, I've tried to bring those conversations, bring that knowledge into the broader debates. And if you think of what the pinnacle of that might be, that would be making a documentary. And so I've had this idea for a long time and finally had an opportunity about 3 years ago. We got funding from the Social Science and Humanities Research Council to make the film. It took about 2 years to make it, and we completed it over the summer last year and started doing screenings back in October.
Is there an overarching theme or message that emerges from this documentary?
Yeah, so one of the things I really wanted to do is, we've spent a long time identifying how bad the situation is. And my research has contributed to that. It's helped to render visible things that we didn't talk about before, like rent evictions, like displacement. And I think we all know that things are really bad. And what I want to do with the film is I want to shift the conversations away from how bad things are to, okay, what can we do about it? What are levers that various levels of government can pull? Maybe not always thinking of these things right off the bat in terms of the most obvious solution, but some different things that governments can do, provincial governments, federal government, municipal, regional governments, but also what can individuals do? What can an individual tenant do, for example? What can nonprofits do? What can community groups do? There's all sorts of solutions that are not only hiding in plain sight, they're actually already happening. And I wanted to render those visible and get those into the conversation so that we can actually talk about what can be done.
The documentary is called Thinking Beyond the Market. I know you've had the opportunity to screen it several times, including most recently with Catherine Fife, our MPP for Waterloo, among others in attendance, or with her support for sure at the Princess in Waterloo. Is there another chance for us to see it upcoming?
Yeah, so we're doing a screening Monday night. It starts at 7 p.m. at the Kitchener Public Library. And this is an event that we're putting on in conjunction with the Social Development Centre of Waterloo Region. And Social Development Centre has done some fantastic work, does fantastic work within our community. I've done a lot of research with them for many years. And so this screening, for me, is a really important one because it helps to recognize that work that we've done over the years. And a lot of the research that we did here many years ago really helped to inform a lot of the basis of the film. So for me, it's a really exciting event. It is a free event. You can register for it if you go to the film's website, www.housingfilm.ca. Very easy website name to remember since it's a housing film. You can go there and find information on how to register for the event. We are filling up. We hope to fill the theater and have a good panel discussion and Q&A afterwards.
Housingfilm.ca, that screening next Monday, the 26th. Where do you hope this documentary and the subsequent conversations take us, Brian?
One of the things that's been really exciting as I've been screening this film in many places, I was up in Newmarket last night doing a screening. We've got our screening here in Kitchener next week. Then I'm off to Eastern Ontario. We've got a number of screenings lined up. I am really happy with how these conversations are going and how the film is being received. And it is clear to me that this film is being very useful in enhancing the existing conversations about housing that are already going on in communities and giving people both a challenge and an inspiration to think about solutions. Where I'd love to see the film ultimately go is in a format or a platform that could be accessible to everybody. I think there's a lot of need and a lot of demand for solutions to the housing crisis. I think this film outlines them very clearly, does it in a highly political yet also very nonpartisan way. I really put the examples of new affordable housing, protecting existing supply that are happening across the country. I really make those front and center. And I think that's a story that more Canadians should get a chance to hear about. And we're trying to get more attention to the film. We're trying to do these screenings. We're trying to bring the film to as many communities as we can. And ultimately, we hope that, you can watch it on your television. You can get on an airplane and have it as one of the in-flight movies that you can watch. That's obviously, out of my hands, but that's where we want to go with it. And hopefully this is the first of more films around urban themes, planning themes, city themes to do, because I think it's really important to take that knowledge and convey it in ways that engage with people, with politicians, with planners, and enhance the debates that are already going on.
I'm a big fan of the medium, and I think it's a great way to tell the story, because obviously what's happening here in the region of Waterloo is not unique to this region. So I'll encourage you again, housingfilm.ca. Check out the site, register for that screening next Monday night, the 26th, and be a part of the conversation. Always like to see you, Brian, and I appreciate the time. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Brian Doucette is an associate professor in the School of Planning at the University of Waterloo. Remember the website, housingfilm.ca. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then just a quick programming note. Enjoy an encore presentation of the Talkback Hour coming up, because I got to get to Windsor for a hockey game. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
It is the time of day that we open phone lines so we can hear directly from you. It's the Talkback Hour, where you get to have your say. And I feel like there are so many things to have a say about today. Transparency, anyone? It doesn't seem to me like we're finding that at the region. Certainly not with the way it has been sharing information over the last little while, from the Wilmot Land Assembly to speed cameras to the water crisis. Media is getting invited individually for one-on-one sessions with the powers that be at the region. And I don't think that's the way that information should be shared. Not to mention, it's completely and utterly inefficient. Like, these people don't have anything better to do with their entire day than sit around and talk to individual media outlets. It's utterly preposterous, at least from where I'm sitting. And then there's the water issue itself. My goodness gracious me. And hey, how about our good friend in the United States? I mean, the United States used to be a really good friend politically, but Donald Trump now has made it very clear, we don't need your stinking automobiles.
Because we don't need Canada product. That's the thing. I want to be a nice person, but we don't need... I want to build the cars here, not in Canada.
I mean, he's not wrong. They could probably produce enough domestically in the United States to never need another Canadian-made automobile. But let's not forget how integrated the North American system is, and the billions of dollars that are at stake here for automakers. Much, I think, as I said, for us to talk about on Talkback today. So let's get right to the phones and begin. Barbara is with us. Good afternoon, Barbara.
Good afternoon, Mike. I attended the regional council meeting yesterday. I didn't. I wasn't a delegation, but I attended and listened to the delegations, and I can say that now I am going to submit a report to be attached to the minutes about my solution, which is obviously efficient and cost-effective. Obviously, that's what I do, Mike.
Well, and let's just, because I know this voice and I know who you are. You are the president of Norton Engineering. You know a thing or two about sewers in this community and water, so I'm glad we can lean on your expertise a little bit here, Barb.
Oh, absolutely. So I want to say that I really felt for the councillors around that horseshoe. I mean, it was not a comfortable meeting. But, everybody was... I think the developers were very fair in their comments and measured. Nobody was too... They were measured in their comments. They were direct but measured, and I think that was great. I will observe that most of the questions from council to the delegations, which were all developer groups or developers, were very much in the tone of, okay, what should we do next? Can you guys tell us? How can we get, can you give us a 1 month, 3 months, 6 month, 1 year plan? Like, what are the first things that we should do? Basically, asking developer, and can you guys decide what we should do, and then submit that information to us. Mike, I don't think it's good public policy to have developers drive the solution. I'm not saying developers don't know things; they most certainly do. They were also asking developers for their experts, for their engineering consultants, to review the water data and see what they could come up with based on the data. Well, why is the regional council asking developers to solve this problem? It's not the developers' problem; it's a region problem, and it is big. So Rob Deutschman commented that we shouldn't need, or something you did, we shouldn't need outside consultants. I strongly disagree. Region staff, we taxpayers paid, I believe, $630 million last year on regional staff, just staff, for salaries, benefits, and wages, whatever. That is a lot of coin.
And that's why I was the one that said I'm surprised we need, with that much money going into the staffing, it's one of the largest employers in the region. I wondered why we needed consultants.
But as Einstein said, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So yes, we have a lot of staff and we're spending a lot of money, but that does not mean these people are experts. I mean, if they were experts, it just boggles the mind that they didn't realize it was. They've been calling the system integrated all these years. I mean, who's minding the store here? I don't have a lot of confidence in regional staff, to be perfectly honest, and I come by that opinion honestly because I'm a sewer expert. I was Woolwich's sewer engineer for 20 years. I frequently had occasion to work with the region or try to work with the region. They were generally not keen on working with me. And I've mentioned before on your show that the region of Waterloo has zero sewer staff. I'm leading to how we're going to solve this problem. I just dropped sewers into the mix. So the solution is simple and cost-effective and environmentally sound. It involves preventing our precious groundwater from draining away through sewer pipes and storm pipes to the river. We need our groundwater, and we need rainwater to stay where it lands. We need it to not be connected to sanitary sewers. I have said a million times it is illegal to have roof leaders discharged to sanitary sewers per sewer use bylaws across Canada, as a matter of fact. And by the way, speaking of regions, I work across Canada. I work with regions across Canada, and this is the only region I've ever worked with that has no sewer staff, no interest in sewers, no understanding of sewers. Water there's a water cycle. Everybody else is calling it water, sewer, lake. It's a cycle. So you can't really look after your water system without thinking about sewers. Now, I'm the national sewer expert. 60 to 70% of the leakage we're seeing everywhere, and by the way, considering where we sit relative to other municipalities, other regions, we have some of the worst leakage numbers I have ever seen, except for municipalities that are right on the lake.
What is leakage?
Leakage is the flow arriving at the region's wastewater treatment plants. Yep. I've examined this many times. About 50% of it is clean water. 50% is clean water. So our pipes are full of clean water. Our pump stations have to manage clean water, and then it arrives at the sewage treatment plant. No other municipality in Canada is ignoring leaking sewers as part of their mandate. I've often thought of asking the region, did you get a special exemption from the Ministry of Environment here? Because you're just allowing clean water to fill up our plants. And let me give you an example. In St. Jacobs, they've had some major flooding events, and the leakage, it's called I&I in the industry for people who understand that term. That just means inflow and infiltration, i.e. rainwater and groundwater. So St. Jacobs plant is nearing capacity. So the region has put out an RFP, and this project is ongoing. The the title of the title of the project is we need to. Sorry, don't quote me. I haven't looked it up, but we need to expand the St. Jacobs wastewater treatment plant. That's not the correct. That's not the correct approach for an EA. The problem statement should be we're getting close to capacity and we're experiencing flooding. Expanding that plant is not going to change the flooding in St. Jacobs because it's backing up. I worked in those.
So what will change the flooding?
Getting rid of the clean water that's on the private side.
And how do we do that?
We ask, first of all, with public education, we need residents to manage their own sanitary sewer. Everybody owns a sewer from the outside of their house to the property line. Residents own that. And I spoke at a Probus group last week, and 3 or 4 women in the group put their hand up and said, I didn't know I owned a sewer. I mean, people don't think about these things.
So how then, as a resident, how do I manage my sewer?
Okay, so every sewer, mandatory CCTV inspection of your lateral should be undertaken. So you can hire a plumber. I recommend this all the time, regardless of whether the region goes forward with this. But you hire a plumber for $300. He'll go in your basement, find your clean out, and run that camera through your sewer. And most people's sewers are the same age as their house. So if your house is 75 years old, so is your sewer. And that sewer is probably leaking. Sewers that we built 75 years ago were the private sewers were literally just clay pipes.
But then if it's my sewer, then I'm going to have to pay to fix that?
Absolutely.
How much is it going to cost me?
Okay, between... if you had to completely replace the whole thing with open cut, that's $10,000. It's a big ask for sure.
So the region's water problem now gets solved by every homeowner spending up to $10,000 to repair their sewer.
Oh, it's not just a water problem. It's also a wastewater problem. So in St. Jacobs, the region is looking to expand that plant instead of... So what's the cost per resident of expanding a wastewater plant? Costs $200, $300, $400 million. And they're prepared to pay that, which we are going to pay for. Well, of course, they're going to ask for money from the feds and the province, but the solution is simple. And we're not forcing residents to do this. We're explaining, because the region production wells, there are 120 of them, they're in the urban area. They are where our houses are. So when we allow that groundwater leaking away through our sewers, away to it just gets dumped to the sewage treatment plant. We need to keep that groundwater in the ground.
So I'm coming up on a commercial break here, Barbara. Okay, I got it. You said this is simple. It's easy. This is it. Like every homeowner needs to take responsibility for their sewer and fix it if it's leaking. That's the solution to the water problem?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, and not just the sewer, the downspout. The downspout connected to sanitary sewer, that there's been no program in the region at all. We need a mandatory downspout disconnection program. So, this stuff is low-key. And if the region wanted, they could fund people replacing their lateral if they wanted. But why should the region, we're going to pay anyway, Mike. So why don't we do something that's efficient, cost-effective, and practical, environmentally friendly, rather than keep expanding wastewater treatment plants? It's unconscionable. So
thank you.
Mike.
All right.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye. There you go. It's a lot, but it comes. I hope you got something in the rainy day fund just in case that 75-year-old sewer, which mine is. I'm a World War II bungalow. Look out, baby. Just after post-World War II. I was 53. My house was built. So 73 years this year. Think it's leaking under there? Think I want to spend $10,000 on it? Anyway, Barbara knows her stuff, particularly around water and sewers. There's another perspective. It's a big mess. We know it's a big mess. By the way, Ontario Liberal Party leader Bonnie Crombie has resigned. So Francois Legault in Quebec. Here in Ontario, Liberal Party leader Bonnie Crombie says, I'm out. Doug Ford's just going to cruise, isn't he? Just keep on cruising, Uncle Doug. It's Talkback, where you start the conversation on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We have got some big problems to solve here in the region of Waterloo. Like big. And that's why we have an hour like this, so we can share ideas, exchange perspectives. It's Talkback. Phone lines open to you. Make the call, start the conversation. Let us know how you're going to solve the problems we're having here in the region. Or tell us about another problem that we might not be aware about. We love to hear about them, and maybe collectively we'll come up with an answer or two along the way. Jake is next on Talkback. Good afternoon, Jake.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good.
Good.
So the Rangers are playing pretty good this year.
Yes, they are.
Yes. And then that's all I wanted to say, because the Rangers are going to beat the Saginaw and Guelph this weekend. I hope they win 2 in a row this year, like 2 back-to-back games at home.
All right, Jake, I appreciate the call, making bold predictions about the upcoming weekend of Kitchener Rangers hockey already. I mean, it's Wednesday afternoon, but I love it. Such is the passion for the Kitchener Rangers in this community. Even in the midst of a water crisis, we are going to say 48 hours in advance, Rangers win. I'm calling my shot Wednesday afternoon before Friday night's game. We are home all weekend, by the way. Friday versus Saginaw, Sunday versus the Guelph Storm. 2 games at the Memorial Auditorium, and I know there is no place you would rather be. There's no place I'd rather be, so we'll see you there. And if you can't make it there, don't worry. Josh Piercy and I have you covered right here on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey, 570 News Radio. And because these weekend games are home games, Josh and I will stay after the games, talk to you about the game that just happened, the OHL in general. So there you go. Jake, thanks for giving us something to look forward to. Jason is next on Talkback. Good afternoon, Jason.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Oh, better than you, I'll bet. Better than you, I'll bet.
Well, it's not. I wasn't surprised by the outcome on Monday night. I was definitely.
Where'd you go?
Sad, 19 years after the fact, but I think it was time for Mr. Tomlin to go. And then, who knows what we're going to get next? Is sometimes the devil you know versus the devil you do know or don't know. So who knows what's going to happen? I've been listening to you all morning and yesterday and watching regional council. And I often say this when people are complaining about the president down south, when there's, it's horrible what he says to the media, then stop showing up. So my suggestion, if media or newspaper or whomever doesn't like how the region conducts their press conferences or press conference, just stop showing up.
Well, no, Jason, that plays right into their hands. See, it's actually, you're right about making the comparison to Trump. This is a deliberate attempt to control the narrative, and it's wrong. It's wrong.
I understand that, the community needs to know what's happening, whether it's sewer, whether it's water, whether it's buildings. But I, in my opinion, I think there would be more criticism on the people not reporting it, but the ones who are supposed to report it, and that is the region or whether it's a business, if nobody showed up and said, well, this is how we think it should go, and they're not doing it the way we want it, and we're just not going to show up anymore. So that's just my opinion only, but what a debacle we have going on right now. But I'm sure we have, as Rob said, we have smart people at all levels of our governments in town here in the city, and we'll get it fixed. It'll just, a little bit more pain before lots of gain coming.
Jason, I appreciate the optimism, and you're right, your opinion, so I'll let it stand as that, but I could not disagree more on the method by which the regional government has been sharing information with the public. It's flat out wrong, and if we as media made it clear that it was wrong by not showing up, that's exactly what it appears this region wants. It does not want to be transparent with us. I'm going to breathe because it gets me fired up. But disagree, Jason, but thanks for sharing your opinion. Alex is next on Talkback. Hello, Alex.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch base on the water crisis. I've heard you say that several times this week. So,
you don't think it's a crisis?
Well, I don't know exactly what they're talking about. Like, for example, where does the water go? Like, for example, the water that comes into my house and everyone else's house, right? It goes down to a drain when you're done with it, and then it goes to a water cleaning treatment facility where they clean it to make it good water again.
The issue, Alex, is there's not enough water.
Right, but the water, we just borrow the water. You know what I mean? Like we don't. It doesn't come into my house and then disappear. It comes into my house. I use it. It goes down the drain to a treatment facility where they clean the exact same water. The exact same amount of water that comes into our houses goes to the treatment facilities. So where's the water going from there? It's clean water.
Okay, so it's coming back. What we're saying, Alex, is like there's not enough water to support future development.
No, I understand that, but I'm trying to get at where's the water going. If it goes to a treatment facility and it's treated.
Okay, well let me look at it this way. Can I try to come at this another way? We have one bottle of water in front of us, and there are 10 of us to share that bottle of water. So we're each going to get 1/10. Now you bring in 5 more people, and then what? There's not enough water for all 15 of us.
But where does the water go? You go to the bathroom, the water comes out, it goes into the toilet, it goes down the drain, it goes to a treatment facility where they clean it, and it's now drinkable.
Okay, Alex, I got to get a news update, and I'm sorry if you want to call back after the news. I'm confused by that. I'm not sure what that's got to do with our water crisis, which I believe it is, but maybe you don't. I get the sense Alex doesn't think this is a crisis. There's not enough water. That to me is a problem. And I'm late for news. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Sue called just before the break, and that update in the 570 News Center with Hutch. And I didn't mean to rush Sue away. The clock is the boss, and the clock is always right, and it always rules the day, and you can't go against the clock because the clock is the clock. And Sue said she spent hours on her own time, if I heard that correctly, shoveling out a bus stop so that it would be safer for people. She thought the idea to solve the problem we're having would be to leave a shovel at the bus stop so people, while waiting for the bus, can clear the snow away, which is a lovely idea in theory. I don't think the shovel would last that long. Also, it's not the transit user's job. It's the transit service's job. And so I've been thinking about this a lot. And again, let's be fair and let's be generous here in spirit. It's been a brutal winter, hasn't it? Like, I don't know about your sidewalk and your driveway. I finally got mine down to what I would think is a good standard on the weekend, right down to the pavement. But it's been hard with the kinds of weather events we've been experiencing, the amount of snow, right? The frequency with which it's falling. It seems like every day there's more to shovel. And if you don't keep up, boy, oh boy, you're in a whole heap of doo-doo. But I find myself, because I'm obsessing over the number of steps I get every day, and I'm out and about with Rosie all the time, our little puppy, walking everywhere. I don't know what you do in a climate like this where winter comes around and just beats up on you. I see what the plow does, and then how the plow impacts our multi-use trails, and how those multi-use trails impact the houses and the sidewalks in front of those houses next to the trails. We got to figure out something different. Or do we just keep putting up with this? I always felt bad for people on corner lots because, of course, the plow goes around the corner and fills in the sidewalk just like it fills in the end of your driveway. And if you're on that corner lot, you want to shovel out that path for people to get across the street. And lots of people are doing that. I see them all the time, because Rosie and I walk in those areas, and we can walk right through the snowbank because they have cleared that path. We got to get that done at transit stops if individual homeowners can do it. But in so many areas, one of the worst sidewalks we walked the other day was in front of a school. Isn't that school board property? Isn't that the school board's responsibility? If the school board can't even keep up with it, I don't know. And I'm not, never have been, never will be in favor of having the city assume control of all sidewalks. Listen to our complaints last week about the way the roads were cleared. And that's what we drive on with vehicles. If the region can't even keep up with the roads to satisfy us as drivers, how on earth is it ever going to keep up with sidewalks and satisfy us as walkers? So I don't think the city should be put in charge, but I do know that we got to figure out something different. Surely there are different plowing technologies, aren't there? Or methods that we could use to reduce the amount or the size of those snowbanks? I still want, digging out that catch basin all the time now, it's remarkable to me how far from the curb the snowbank forms when the plow goes by. I'm sure we don't want to be damaging the curb or the blade of the snowplow, so we stay a far enough distance away to be safe, but and maybe it's never been a problem, so I'm worrying too much about the catch basin being clear, because there's no effort whatsoever to plow over top of it. We're way out into the road over top of that thing. You really have to work to get that sucker cleared, to say nothing of our fire hydrants, etc. Maybe this is just dealing with winter. I feel like I'm kind of talking in circles here, but if you've got the answer or you've seen something better, like, I'm here to hear about it, because I think with all of the various bits of infrastructure we have created, from bike lanes to multi-use trails, etc., we can't make them function properly in the wintertime. We simply can't. Everything that we do on a road or on a trail just makes things worse for the next piece of concrete or asphalt that's nearby, right? It's either the end of your driveway, part of your sidewalk, a corner where you're trying to get across a road. Zero answers here, but a lot of frustration with the way this winter has gone. Let's get back to the phones here on Rant or Rave. Nathaniel is with us. Good afternoon, Nathaniel.
Hello. I have a bit of a rant. For context, my parents and I share cars, and the three radio stations we listen to are this station, 96.7 and 96.3 FM. And every once in a while, I think mostly in the before 9 and after 6, all three are playing ads, which kind of aggravate.
They're playing ads that aggravate you?
No, all three are playing ads. So 570 is playing ads, and then I changed to 96.3, and they are playing ads, and then I changed to 96.7, and they are playing ads. So that's just a pet peeve of mine.
Okay. Well, listen, Nathaniel, I appreciate that. And I will say that I appreciate even more the partners that we have on this show and this radio station that buy advertising time so you can hear them. And that helps support us as a radio station and gives you a great opportunity to buy things or obtain services from our partners that advertise to you through this radio station. I could go on a long tangent about how and why we do the things the way that we do in broadcasting. And I would even add into it a story with a radio company that decided they had figured it out by putting their commercials at different times than other stations were doing their commercials. And they even promised that the commercials were not going to be on long. It's only going to be 2 minutes. And then people got upset because the 2-minute commercial breaks came up too often. Here's my best advice to you, my friend. My best advice to you is just enjoy the commercials. They are partners. They are as much a part of this radio station as this show, the news updates, and everything else you hear. Just enjoy them. Listen to the messages that are within them, and then the show is going to come back on, or the next piece of music if you're listening to 96.7. So just enjoy them. Best thing I can tell you, because they keep it all going round and round in the right direction for us here at the radio station. Debbie is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Debbie.
Hi, Mike. I have a rave and a rant.
Okay.
My rave is for the courts that found that it was illegal for what the government did when they imposed the War Measures Act.
Yep.
And kudos to them for their finding. And my rant is, so I have a little question here. It's not a trick question, Mike.
Okay.
So what does apartheid, Holocaust, residential schools, civil rights, 9/11, the Irish Wars, what is something that they all have in common?
Are you sure that's not a trick question, Debbie?
It's not a trick
question. Okay. What would you say all of those things have in common?
What they have in common is that there were eyewitnesses that lived and went through it, and many of them were either victims or they were the perpetrators. And the victims have, in many cases, stories of the truth of what really happened, and not the published truth that the perpetrators gave out. And sometimes it takes a lot of years until that happens, especially, like, for instance, with our residential schools. And also what's happening with the Holocaust. We've got all these Holocaust deniers now trying to say, oh, that didn't really happen. But we still have some of the POWs that have the numbers written, inscribed in their skin, that are saying, oh, yes, it did happen, and let me tell you what really happened. And that's what we need in history. That's what, our history books are written about, and some of them have had to be rewritten once the truth comes out. And so where I'm going with this is that I took exception with when Dave Drew said that a lot of people think that, I don't know if it's his opinion. I have a lot of respect for Dave Drew. I listen to him a lot when I listen to you. But I take exception to the truckers being called a bunch of yahoos. And the reason that I say that is when the protest was going on down in Ottawa, my daughter, who's a teacher, she was watching mainstream media and saw all of this unruliness, and all the talk was that, how terrible this protest was, blah, blah, blah. And she wanted to know what was really going on. So she planned on going down, and she asked me, she said, do you think our grandson was too young? He was 12 at the time to take along. And I said, absolutely, take him along, because the day will come when there will be people that will be saying, oh, it was this, it was that, it was a bunch of yahoos. And so they went down there for 2 weekends in January, and were amongst the crowd, walked amongst. My daughter took stuff down to give out to the homeless.
All right. Look, Debbie, this has been going on for a little bit now. If I can just interject here, I don't think it's unfair for somebody to characterize a group that essentially takes over a town without permission as a bunch of yahoos. I don't think that's too harmful. It's just David's opinion on that. And I might agree.
And there are people who do, but I just want to say that when there are, like my grandson going along down there were just as many immigrants that were walking around, and they were all saying the same thing.
What's that got to do with the price of tea? Maybe your grandson becomes a Yahoo by association, Debbie.
Anything is possible.
All right, anything is possible. That was starting to go, like, it just kept going and going. So I'll just move on from there. But listen, I get it. And to the point that started it, I will just share with you again this audio, because I said this at the beginning of the show today. Like, what a wild time in history we all experienced, if not endured, from 2020 through 2023, give or take, pandemic times. Right? Vaccines, vaccine passports, all kinds of things. And I was on record when the Emergencies Act was invoked as saying it was overreach. We had laws in place, if only applied, that could have taken care of the situation, but we failed to follow through on that. And then I think folks with too little experience wielded far too heavy a sledgehammer, and our federal court of appeal upheld a lower court ruling. Our federal government appealed the lower court ruling that said the use of the Emergencies Act was unreasonable. And even the Court of Appeal says, no, it was unreasonable to invoke that act. This is John Carpe from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, which provided legal support to some of the people charged in the Freedom Convoy.
The Federal Court of Appeal has affirmed a powerful lower court ruling that denounces the federal government for freezing bank accounts and inflicting violence on peaceful protesters during Freedom Convoy 4 years ago. I'm sure you'll recall Freedom Convoy large protest in Ottawa, January, February 2022. Unlike a lot of other protests, there was no violence, no property damages, no smashed windows, no arson, no killing, no uttering threats. And yet, Prime Minister Trudeau declared that a peaceful protest in one Canadian city, namely Ottawa, somehow constituted a national emergency.
It's a good way to put it. And you can disagree with the actions of those protesters taking over a town and creating some unrest amongst the peaceful residents of that city, Ottawa, while still agreeing that the use of the Emergencies Act was overreach. You can hold those two views simultaneously, at least from where I'm sitting. Rant or Rave continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Mondays, Talkback is your chance to rant and or rave. Rant because you're upset about something. Rave because you're the opposite. Right back to the phones we go. George in Cambridge. 00 George, Farwell's Force member number. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I want to give a rave for Doug Ford about the spy cars.
By all means.
My mind went to overdrive. Could you imagine you and your buddies, you all go out and buy these cars, and as a prank, you're going to drive around, talk about a buddy who knows Donald Trump, and they're planning to attack China on March 17th. And you have few of the cars doing this. Could you imagine the world consequences to this?
Well, if indeed you are driving a spy car, then yes, this would be a prank of magnificent proportions, George.
One that we would not have seen yet because we've never had this technology, at least not in this capacity. So wouldn't that be an interesting world you'd live in where a common man in Canada could cause a severe world war between two superpowers?
Are you asking me to participate in your prank once the Chinese EVs get here, George? Because I'm down with a good prank.
It's a great prank, but I'm afraid to see what the possible consequences would be if they got hold of this and they take it seriously. What would happen?
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. I think it's an interesting theory you put forward. You know what it makes me think of? Do you remember the movie War Games? A young Matthew Broderick? Shall we play global thermonuclear war? And Matthew Broderick, who was this great hacker, thought he was breaking into a game on his computer. Instead, what he actually had hacked into was a real computer that could launch a global thermonuclear war. Lots of fun. Dabney Coleman in the movie. That's what the 1980s were all about. Good old days, 40-odd years ago. Andre is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Andre.
Good afternoon, Mike. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
I have a couple rant and rave. Rant is, I'm sorry, David Drew, I slept in. Lots of hockey this weekend.
Wait a minute. David Drew is on the show at 11:30 in the morning, Andre. And you were still... Andre. Holy Hannah. That's not sleeping in. That's Rip Van Winkle sleeping for 40 days territory. Okay.
I'm in for the 20 minutes, like Walter says.
Yeah, I guess so, because you sleep past 11:30. You want to trade?
So, like Don Cameron said,
yeah.
Times, that's all we have. So
Don Cameron said that?
Don Cameron? Is
it? He said time is all we have?
No, something like that. Time is our enemy.
Oh, time is our enemy. I don't think that was Don Cameron, but anyway.
Yeah, he snapped his finger.
Busy show for busy people.
Busy show, busy.
That was Don Collins. You got to keep the Dons right. Don Collins was my old manager.
More than 20 minutes.
All right. Andre, you're killing me.
I want to say a couple of things. Two, the bus service is the people that drives the bus are excellent. Like, I'm blind. They will drop me off where it's safe for me to get off or even to get on. I really, really appreciate that from the driver. You said something about a better system, Mike. Montreal is a city of slush and disgusting. But every time it snows, they have the gear going on, and they have these, like the lady was saying, whatever you want to call them, on the sidewalk. They push on the road, and then they come with the blower, and they put in the truck, and they recycle it. So that's, to me, was the better system. And my last is a rave to JP. Thank you very much for the excellent work he's doing with you, Mike, because he said he was on probation before. I don't know what's happening, but thank you very much for Tanner Lamb, because I missed that hat trick because I'm playing the snow with my kids. So thank you very much for following that. You said yesterday afternoon, that he was all over the place, and oh my God, it makes me so happy that these young fellas are clicking in.
All right, Andre, yeah. Time is our enemy, buddy.
Thank you.
Got to go. Thank you. How many different directions did that go in? Tanner Lamb's hat trick was like a week ago already. JP, Josh Piercy, broadcast partner on Kitchener Rangers hockey. We are going to be in Windsor on Wednesday night, because who doesn't want to go to Windsor on a Wednesday? But that's a big hockey game for your Kitchener Rangers. So JP and I will be there with the team, bringing you all the action. And then maybe a week and a half later, Andre will talk about the game this Wednesday night. I love that guy. And I love him even more because he gets to sleep past 11:30 on a Monday. I want to trade, Andre. You come to work and prepare this damn show, and prepare it poorly. Man, I let you down left and right today. I didn't play the hangover songs. I didn't do anything right. We're going to fix that tomorrow. Please join me tomorrow for the remorseful show, okay? I'll be back at 9 tomorrow morning. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.